We're just waiting for Bill Wilson to get on Zoom. Did we do the same thing last time? It wasn't.
Yeah, I think so.
Alex, for all the files we have, are all of them represented by counsel?
Yes, I believe so.
Director Gabel, did you talk to Bill today?
I asked him if he was gonna be on, and he said yes.
He should be coming into the room watching.
Not while the PowerPoint is up, but have to just take the PowerPoint off. Not to switch back and forth, it's a little harder to do that.
Are you ready, Jennifer? All right, it is 1:37 and we are here to hear a number of files. We will start with file ZC0011-24. We'll call for conflict of interest by the Board of Commissioners.
Commissioner Corn has none.
Commissioner Williams has none.
Commissioner Domke has none.
All right, does anybody need any assistance for this hearing? All right, we'll turn it over to Alex.
Thank you, Commissioners. So, Alex Fan, Planning Staff. So, this file was continued from a hearing in February where we had only two of the commissioners present, and the commissioners decided that they wanted a third commissioner present to be able to vote on this file. So, I don't know if all of you are caught up on it, but I'm happy to give give my presentation one more time if you would like me to.
Let's do the full hearing, please.
Okay, sounds great.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is file ZC0011-24, a zone change request from agricultural forestry 20 to agricultural forestry 10. These are the standards of which this application was reviewed against. The applicants are requesting a zone change from agricultural forestry 20 to agricultural forestry 10 on one parcel approximately 20 acres in size. The project is located off Thimbleberry Lane in Section 26, Township 58 North, Range 1 West, Boise Meridian. Comprehensive plan designation is ag forest land, and this request was evaluated against the standards for both agricultural forestry 20 and agricultural forestry 10. This is an unplatted parcel, approximately 20 acres in size, has a current zoning designation of agricultural forestry 20 and a land use designation of ag forest land, which allows for 10 and 20 acres. The parcel is accessed from Thimbleberry Lane, a privately owned and maintained road, via Colburn Culver Road, a Bonner County owned and maintained public right-of-way. The graphic on the right-hand side shows the subject site outlined in purple, with an arrow to Thimbleberry Lane and Colburn Culver Road, which is highlighted in green on the west side. So the site does contain map slopes of 0 to 30% or greater. The site does not contain any mapped wetlands. It does not contain any frontage to a mapped water body and is located within Special Flood Hazard Area Zone X. It is served by an individual well and individual septic system, Northside Fire District, Avista Utilities, and Lake Pend School District Number 84. The graphic on the right-hand side of the screen shows the parcel highlighted in purple. The LiDAR slope layer from the GIS map is on, with the areas not highlighted are 0 to 15% slope. The areas in yellow are 15 to 29.9% slope, and red is 30% or greater. So there are 4 different types of soils on this property. There is, I call this H and X, which is classified as not prime farmland. Pondere Rock Outcrop Complex, classified as not prime farmland. Selly Fine Sandy Loam is classified as prime farmland, and Mission Silt Loam is classified as farmland of statewide importance if drained. So a full list of the agencies that were noticed can be found in Appendix A of the staff report. We received only no comment replies from the Idaho Transportation Department, Northside Fire District, Idaho Department of Fish and Game, and Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. All the other agencies that were noticed did not reply. And we received no public comments on this file. These are the standards for Agricultural Forestry 20. The Agricultural Forestry District is established to provide for agricultural and forestry pursuits, including livestock production, forestry, horticulture, floriculture, viticulture, and necessary accessory uses for treating, storing, and processing agricultural products. The purpose of the AF district is to preserve and protect and maintain areas that are rural in character and the integrity of the forest and woodland areas where viable agricultural pursuits can be feasible, and to avoid fragmentation of forests and farms. These purposes are accomplished by establishing a residential density limits and conservation development standards to retain areas sized for efficient farming, allowing for uses related to agricultural production and limiting non-agricultural uses to those compatible with agriculture or requiring close proximity for the support of agriculture. The use of the zone is appropriate in areas designated by the comprehensive plan as follows. AF 20 in all areas designated as prime farmland, as prime ag forest land in the comprehensive plan, and the AF 20 zone is also appropriate in areas designated as ag forest land in the comprehensive plan that also feature prime agricultural soils, are characterized by agricultural or forestry uses, and in areas where one or more of the following apply. Limited services characterized by slopes steeper than 30%, where access may be absent or limited to substandard road systems, or where large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. The Agricultural Forestry 10 is AF 10 in areas designated as ag forest land in the comprehensive plan that do not feature prime agricultural soils, but where agricultural and forestry pursuits remain viable. These areas may be within or adjacent to areas of city impact, or where lands are afforded fire protection, access to standard roads, and other services. And this is just a quick overview of the two zoning districts. We'll get into the staff analysis. Contains prime agricultural soils. So the parcel contains 4 types of soils: Ponderay rock outcrop complex, Selly fine sandy loam, H&X, and Mission silt loam. According to the natural resources component of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan, H&X highlighted in the dark green on the western portion, and Ponderay rock outcrop complex are considered not prime farmland. These soils make up approximately 5 acres of the project site. Not prime farmland is considered as all other soil types not classified as prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance are classified as non-prime farmland per the natural resources component of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. The Selly silt loam highlighted in gold and the Mission silt loam highlighted in light green to the southwest on the property are considered all areas of prime farmland and farmland of statewide importance if drained respectively. Selly silt loam is classified as 4E if it is not irrigated. 4E classification is described as class 4 soils have very severe limitations and restrict the choice of plants, require very careful management or both. And subclass E is made up of soils for which the susceptibility to erosion is the dominant problem or hazard affecting their use. Erosion susceptibility and past erosion damage are the major soil factors that affect soils in this subclass. It should be noted that farmland of statewide importance has not been recognized as prime farmland soil by the comprehensive plan or by the state of Idaho. Characterized by agricultural or forestry uses. According to the Bonner County Assessor data, the parcel is currently receiving an agricultural timber tax exemption on approximately 19 acres of the property, and the surrounding areas appear to have similar tax exemptions. Characterized by slopes steeper than 30%. The parcel does contain slopes steeper than 30%, as shown in red on the slide around, but the Parcel has mostly areas of 0 to 29.9% grade, approximately 18 acres of this property, and contains approximately 2 acres of area with slopes that are approximately 30% or greater. According to the land use portion of the comprehensive plan for density ranges, properties that are level to moderately sloped are appropriately sized to be 5 to 10 acres. Access may be absent or limited to substandard road systems. Access to the parcel is by way of Thimbleberry Lane, a privately owned and maintained road, and Colburn Culver, a Bonner County owned and maintained public right-of-way. Bonner County Road and Bridge did not comment as to the construction of Colburn Culver Road, and there has been no information provided to the construction and quality of Thimbleberry Road. Large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. Within 1,200 feet of this property, there are 19 properties. 11 of these properties, including the project site, are sized at 20 acres or larger, ranging from 20 to 80 acres. These larger parcels all appear to have the capability to be devoted to ag forest production or are currently being used for ag forest production. The standards for agricultural forestry 10, comprehensive plan designation. So the property has a comprehensive plan designation of ag forest land, which is devoted to properties of 10 to 20 acres in size. As of the date of this report, the Planning Commission has proposed changes to the comprehensive plan map county-wide, and the proposed land use designation for this parcel is to remain ag forest land, which would continue to be compatible with 10 to 20 acre parcels. Do not feature prime agricultural soils, but where agricultural and forestry pursuits remain viable. As stated, the property contains soils that are considered to be non-prime farmland, and one soil that is considered to be farmland of statewide importance, and one soil that is considered to be all areas of prime farmland. The soil that of the prime farmland, or the area of prime farmland, is approximately 10 acres on this property, and the non-prime farmland or farmland of statewide importance takes up approximately the other 10 acres of the property. This property is currently receiving an agricultural and forestry tax exemption on 19 acres of the 20-acre property per Bonner County assessor data. Within or adjacent to area of city impact. This property is not located within an area of city impact, but it is located approximately 2.4 miles as the crow flies from the city of Kootenai's area of city impact. Afforded fire protection services, the property is located within the service area of the Northside Fire District. Additionally, this parcel is afforded other services, including Bonner County EMS, Bonner County Sheriff, and Avista Utility provides powers, and it is served by an individual well and individual septic system. Access to standard roads and other services. Access to the parcel is by way of Thimbleberry Lane, a privately owned and maintained road, and Colburn Culver, a Bonner County owned and maintained public right-of-way. Bonner County Road and Bridge did not comment as to the construction of Colburn Culver Road, and there is no information provided to the construction and quality of Thimbleberry Road. On October 17th, 2024, the Zoning Commission recommended approval of this application in a unanimous vote for 2-0. And that finishes my presentation. I can answer any questions if you have any for me.
Does the board have any questions for staff at this time? Commissioner?
So I didn't want to interrupt you, but you talked about the different soil types. One of them, which is mission silt loam. What was that, was guesstimated to be about 5 acres in size? Is that what I heard?
Let me see here. I believe so. I don't have that right in front of me, but I believe that's correct.
Okay. And how is that determined as far as what types of soils are on properties?
So this is all information from the, gosh, I don't have it on committed to memory at the moment. Is it NRCS? The NRC, yes. So this data is current as of November of 2024. That information came from the GIS fact data sheet that they provided on the GIS map.
And how did they get that data, I guess is what I'm asking. Was there soil tests done, or how did they find out which soil types are on these parcels?
I'm not sure how the USDA does those surveys.
That's all I have.
Any further questions from the board? All right, with that, we'll turn it over to, is the applicant here?
Yeah.
Commissioners, thank you so much for the opportunity. Commissioner Horn, that was a great question. That's one of the main issues we have here, is whether or not we have.
We're gonna wait, he's gonna transfer, so just wait.
Yeah,
one
we have a
moment.
presentation here. All right, microphone, so, oh,
There-
this one is what?
There's a microphone at the podium, we just.
Yeah.
Use that one.
Yep, and you can just use the arrow keys down here to.
Wonderful. So, you identified the issue correctly. The
Can I
soil.
ask you to introduce yourself, though?
Oh,
Sorry.
yes. No,
Thank you.
thank you, Commissioner. My name is Mauricio Cardona. I'm with the Davalier Law Group, and I represent the Ledrews in this change of zoning. We also have Dan Provolt here, who will be providing his opinions based on his experience about this application and the conditions in the property. I believe of the people here, he's probably the only one who has been to the site and has tested the soils. Going back to what I was saying before I got on the microphone to create the record, the prime agricultural soils, that is one of the main questions here that differentiate the Ag 20 or from 10. And as you will see throughout our presentation, the data that is provided to the county is not based on soil data, not based on the ground. This is based on inferences that are then built into a database and are provided as estimations. The reason we have these kind of hearings is because we must all remember that the reason we have government is to protect us, not to rule over us. And in the planning environment, it is pretty clear. There are certain rules, the commissioners follow the rules, they create a record, and then the decision must stand on its own. So what we're here to do today is to answer all the questions we can, and as the representative of private property owners, to understand how, if you decide we're non-compliant, we are non-compliant, so that we can decide how to address that, whether through a new application or through an appeal. But we're dealing with people here. We're dealing with landowners who bought property in the county with certain expectations. They bought with the expectation that they were going to be able to subdivide this property, because as many people, they happen to have more than one child, and they would like to have two parcels so that when they pass, their children can each have a parcel next to each other. I think that's something we can all relate to. When they review the rules and regulations that apply to this piece of land, it made sense to them. And they thought it was reasonable for them to assume this was an allowed use of the property they acquired. So earlier we talked about the rules that rule these proceedings. And that comes from Idaho Code and the ordinances that have been passed by this board and prior boards, and also by the comprehensive plan. These are the standards that are set for everybody, and they apply equally to everybody. Now, the commissioners do have a certain degree of authority, but it is limited by the law as it is and not the law as they would like it to be. So I will ask you all to keep that in mind as you're reviewing this application. We all know that there are certain things that each one of you will like to be implemented into the ordinances and into the comprehensive plan. But we will ask you to put those thoughts on hold, because it's not fair to apply those unadopted perspectives to a pending application in front of you. So this, as you just heard, was evaluated and was unanimously approved. It was unanimously approved by the people who specialize in this particular kind of evaluations. The people who are familiar with the comprehensive plan, with the ordinances, who look at many of these things. And in their opinion, unanimously, they recommended the approval. But it also became clear that there were some contested facts. And that's what we're here to do, to supplement the record and answer those questions. The prime sole contention, to answer Commissioner Korn's question, is based on a 1982 aerial survey. That's the primary data used to come up with those recommendations that, yes, were likely updated in the database very recently. But as we all know, the primary source of the data is what determines the quality of any follow-up assumptions derived from such data. There were other things we wanted to point out in the report. The timber exception is 12.4 acres, not 19. Also, my clients in this property are paying for 6.6 acres of rural residential tract, essentially development use. Why is this important? Because as we're looking at the zoning difference between 10 and 20 acres in this classification of agriculturally or forest uses, we're looking at a spectrum. How close are we to urbanization and services versus how far? In a county like ours, that matters. You guys get to deal all the time with EMS and fire, and you know, there is a huge difference from somebody who has their home next to a county-maintained road versus somebody who has their home 20 miles of a secondary access. Huge. And I believe that is what the plan is talking about when it talks about limited services. It's a continuum. So I ask you to ask yourselves, and this is pretty close to here, so I imagine you all have knowledge of this region, specifically that road, since the county does have a large refuse area there. This is not out in the boonies, as they say. This is right here. I mean, Domino's may even deliver there. Also, there were no responses from any of the departments or any of the neighbors. What do I read into that? This is as vanilla gets. When a district has something to say, if the fire department thought they couldn't come and do something, they will say it. If the neighbors thought this use was insane, they will say it. But within a stone throw of this house, we have essentially dozens of 10-acre parcels. This is very common for this neighborhood. We're not asking the commissioners today to break in new ground. This is a very small zoning adjustment. Some of the evidence I've been telling you about is coming straight from the assessment. So, is the records of the county itself that show how this is not one of those parcels out in the middle of nowhere that people sometimes buy for the ag exception, that the only way to get there too is on a single track, and the only way you're going to spend any time there is with a tent. No, this is right here in urban part of the county. Services. So Avista provides gas, Northern Lights provides power, they even have internet. We have Bonner County services, law enforcement, first responders, and otherwise. Now I'm going to let Dan Provold talk to you guys for a little bit. He has the expertise and the experience in dealing with this sort of issues, and he will be much better able to answer your questions. I do ask that you voice your concerns so that you may make an informed decision. Dan, go ahead, sir.
Dan Provolt, project rep. Also been into on-the-ground land surveying for over 30 years right here in Bonner County. I've seen a lot of commissioners' faces, the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission. I'm on the ground. I'm a licensed land surveyor. We look at a lot of people's property. We do a lot of walking, hiking through these things, the forest, the lakes, the water, the rock cliffs. We have our eyes on exactly what we're doing. So I'd like to start here on the PowerPoint. We're looking at the two comparisons. We have the AF20 and AF10. They're both in the same comp plan, so we're not changing comp plans here. The first part of the contention into what we have out there is prime agricultural soils. We're going to be taking a look at that in a little bit. We did an on-site testing of several holes with the excavator and the buckets, and we gathered the soils. Doesn't quite line up with the soils map, and we're going to show you a little more information about how that map was developed and how they used that information to develop where the lines are for the different designations of the soil in the area. So we are, so then the second one, characterized by the ag forest use. It is in the ag forest district, whether it be a 10 or a 20. We've got one or more that was already gone through here of the areas of limited service. We are not in the limited service area. We have all these services. We're right off of Colburn Culver Road, up Thimbleberry Road, just a short distance. Slopes and steeper slopes and 30%. I think we talked about maybe 2 acres, and that was up in the northwest corner. You can see where it sloughs off down to the lower levels as you head north. So certainly not much there. Substandard road access, again, we're going to show some pictures of that road, maintained, quite wide and rocked. You'll see the condition of that. Large tracts dedicated to ag forest production, we're going to say no on that one also. We have 80 acres to the north. Some might say that's a large tract, but the 80 acres to the north is in the AF10 district or zone already. We have 30 acres to the south, has the same prime soils, which is the statewide importance, farmland of statewide importance. We're going to look at that too. It's mentioned in the staff report how to handle what that means, that farmland of statewide importance. So we're going to segregate that out. So we've got this in section 3.3 of the comprehensive plan. As noted, the farmland protection policy, so forth. So when we're looking at the farmland of statewide importance, they have a note in there that says it is not evident that the state, Idaho State Department of Agriculture, or any other higher office of the state has designated. Says it's not apparent that the designated farmland of statewide importance for the state of Idaho. A little closer to that myself. Further is required an act it is not evident that such designations have been formally adopted by the NRCS state conservation or conservation for the state of Idaho. So it's to be noted that the NRCS has provided Bonner County a list of soils classified as farmland of statewide importance. A list of soils classified as the farmland of statewide importance can be found in the appendix. Jump in here on the staff report and pull that statement up. Agricultural forest at the bottom for forestry 20, right at the bottom of the page, 14 in the staff report. It should be noted that farmland of statewide importance has not been recognized as prime farmland soil by the comprehensive plan or by the state of Idaho. So we cannot designate that as prime farmland because it hasn't been accepted into the state or the county. So now we're going to look at the 1982 soil survey. That is exactly how or where all the information comes from, the updated data, the colorized photos that we are looking at in the GIS on the soils overlay. And I don't know if y'all can see what's in the book. We have what's up here, but I've got some larger photos. This is the soil survey, Bonner County area. So there's, what we've got here is a book. It's all black and white because it was developed in 1982. I know we had color TV back then, but we got the date here on the contents page, which is page 2. I also brought the actual map of the page within the book that is looking at the area that we are investigating. That's the height you're looking at from the aircraft. The lines in there, you will find that they have the soils analysis in there, and the numbers in the lines will line up exactly with what that GIS has today. The color-coded ones, they took the numbers and gave a color code to them and overlaid them. Now, imagine that you're in the airplane, you're flying over, this is what you're seeing. They did their flyovers in 1982, they had the black and white photo. This is all hand generated, it wasn't CAD generated. This was before that. Their cameras were for pictures only, they did not have the scans. They didn't have the penetrating LiDAR. They didn't have color versions in order to see what they were looking at. This was the basis for their soils analysis. Throughout the county, in a few places, they generated some test holes to see what kind of soils they're working with here in Bonner County. But they didn't go in and develop out this line work from any of that data, other than they looked at slopes, they looked at hillsides, trees, drainage patterns, and they decided what kind of soil was under the ground for these photos. Very general. So there's an approximation of how high it would look in color. A little more in the future from what they developed. That's from 15,000 feet. Can you tell, other than what they've planted there perhaps, as to what kind of soil there was under the ground without going out on the ground and digging a hole and doing a test hole? So that's what we did. We decided, let's go out and see what kind of soils are there, rather than trying to take what they've done generalized and inferred and created these really nice looking maps to make it look very official, but they're absolutely approximate. And we're going to get to it in a little bit, but we have a very good example of how off they are. We're going to show you here in a little bit. Can we pull up the backhoes?
Yeah.
So that's the day we were out there. We dug 6 holes. And then there's where we did them. You can see the property is outlined in red, and we have the little dots, black dots with numbering system 1 from the southwest corner, 2 in the middle, 3 up toward the end there, 4 up around the top in the northeast corner of there, and then 1 back toward the house, and then 1 just next, well, fairly near to the house. And so we dug that up and we ran it through analysis. So I brought with you so you can see firsthand from each hole what kind of soils we dug up. So you're not just taking my word for it. Hole number 2. Hole number 1. Hole number 3. Hole number 4. Hole number 5, or sorry, hole number 6. Number 5 is in a picture. The one with the rocks and the water.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, the one in the middle, that's hole number 5. That's the one that was near the house. That's what's known as rock outcrop. We have, let's stick with the soils for the moment. So that's the rock outcrop. I didn't bring a bag full of the rock. So we've got some comparisons. What we're trying to establish here is the differences between the mission silt loam and the celli-fine sand loam. The celli-fine sandy loam is prime soil. That's the majority of the property. That was on the north side. Can you show that?
Yep.
Okay, the blue is the celli-fine sandy soil. That's where we did our digging. We did one hole right about just into the orange, which is the mission silt loam, which is poorly drained. And on the aerial photos we can bring up, you'll see the drainage is running through there. You can see a lot of it, and it has clay in it a little bit, but it has no sand whatsoever. So we went and did these holes. We've got the soil here, you can examine them. We did several tests according to the instructions that we found from the different websites that provide that information. I've got a list also that shows all those references that we used.
Okay.
So yeah, so we have the one of the testing processes is to break the rock up, or the soils up that you find, and put them in the jar. We filled it halfway up. You shake the heck out of it so it separates all of the fines from the sand, from the clay, and so forth. And you set it there, and I let it sit there for 3 or 4 days. It's been there a couple of weeks now. It's brought it in, but it likes to cloud up the water if I move it. But I did take a picture of it. So that's it there. How has it settled out? You can see no sand. The sand would have been on the bottom. Then you have your silt would have been in between, and you had some clay developing on top. This is 0% sand and 100% silt loam. So we're showing here that what they said was the fine sandy silt loam. To make that a prime soils, it has to have sand in it, anywhere from close to 50% south, and actually it's the other way around. Can we bring that chart back up?
That one? Go backwards then. That one?
Nope.
First one.
There it was. We're there. Okay. So you can see the celli-fine sandy loam. That's what it says on the map that this large area is. Has to have 52% or more sand. Mission silt loam, less than 50% is what we have here. And I would say closer to maybe 0, maybe 1 or 2%. I didn't find any sand there. So the silt content is less than 50% in the celli-fine sandy loam. You've got gritty and coarse for the texture. You have well drained and fastly drained. That's a word. Water retention, low to moderate. Fertility, moderate. And then erosion risk high due to, okay, so then erosion risk high due to the sandy composition, so the water's gonna rush through it very quick. We have no sand. This is exactly what we have to the south, which is in the orange on the map, which was everything to the south. So then let's go back one more time and look at the one we were just on. Okay, So in the mission silt loam, which is what we have here, we determine less than 50% sand, hardly any at all. Silt content, 50% or more, we're 100% close to it. Then they throw in the texture, silky smooth. We can open these bags, that is extremely smooth and silky. There's no grit whatsoever in these. We have 2 of them that were a little bit darker, marginally darker. That was up toward, that was number 3. Yeah, number 3, which is up toward the middle of the property, and number 4, which is around the other end of the rocky outcrop. And there's a little bit of clay in there. I believe that's what makes it dark. It retains a little more water. Maybe has a little more organics in it, but again, 0 sand. So we can't say that their map from 1982 from 15,000 feet, we're able to go down and look and draw this line as to what kind of sand or what kind of soil was on one side of the line, what kind of soil was on the other side of the line. So we can't depend on that. We've got.
I think we covered this
back.
one. Okay.
So we've got basically how they did this written up here. We have number 1, which is the aerial photo interpretation, which is what this was, as a primary mapping tool. They have black and white aerial photos for the primary method of delineating. They don't, due to lack of satellite imagery and LiDAR and GIS tools at that time. Photos were manually interpreted using a stereoscopic viewing device, where the soil scientist identified broad generalizations and potential misclassification. Misclassification right here, there's a sample. They use the 40-foot contour quadrangle maps to determine the slope, 40-foot contours, to interpolate what direction the water or the lands were running. They use the 40-foot, okay, so the problem with the 40-foot contour interval is too coarse to detect small landform variations and could affect soil formation, which it did. It's not what they expected it to be, but that's not the only place, and we'll show it in a little bit. Shallow rock outcrops are gonna miss those. They did on our project. We can pull up the map of the property closest up. Okay, so you can see on this one here, the area in the middle on the left looks like maybe like a banana a little bit. That's a rocky outcrop. They completely blew across that and called it all prime soils. They completely missed that. That's where we got our rock pile from. Back to where we were on that page. How the soil samples were reviewed.
This one?
Keep going. Oh, one more, I think? We're getting there.
That's it.
There we go. Some, okay, that's statewide importance.
Okay, which one?
Keep going. Oh, not backwards. I'm soil. Sorry.
That's okay, tell me when.
Okay, keep going there. There we go. So the soils were assumed based on slope categories, gentle slopes, moderate and steep, and outcrops, and so forth. The conclusion was no physical soil verification was done in every area. Instead, soil scientists best guessed the soil types based on the slope and the landscape positions, which can be highly inaccurate. So the extrapolation of the hand-drawn soil boundaries, the analyzing of the area photos, topography maps, soil types were extrapolated and inferred without direct samplings. Soil boundaries were manually drawn, and then we're still using those. If you go to the GIS, they will match up exactly with these old 1882. They didn't reorganize them for better data. Problem since the actual field verification was sparse, these maps often misinterpreted where the soil type transitions back to the third. Conclusions: manual mapping method failed to capture real-world soil variability, leading to misplaced boundaries and incorrectly embedded soils. Let's go the other way. Oh, let's do this. Well,
Was there anything else on
Let's-
soils you wanted to cover?
there is. That's the one. I need to bring the GIS up if we can, Alex. We tried to make a picture of what we're looking at on GIS, but it's really important for us to go in and actually see it on the screen because that with backlighting and coloration and so forth. We can do a little investigation and analysis. So we're going to show you that what they did just quarter mile from where we are, mapping that really makes it apparent that they missed the boat big time.
While we wait for that, do any of the commissioners want to fill the soils?
No, thank you.
No, I'll ask my questions about it when you're done with the presentation.
Yeah.
They have other ones, tell how much clay's in there, you get it all wet and you try to roll it. Just don't roll it, just smears. There's no.
Director Gabel, I think we grossly underestimated your time because you gave this until 3:30 for all these files, so you might have to look for another day.
We won't be much longer. Before being better. If we can get it, okay.
It is, what were you looking for?
Okay, so let's, you see the 42 off to the right? Let's go have a look there. Not far enough right. It was, go up a little bit, right there, the lake. Nope. Go down,
Southeast.
south and east,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
See the 42 off to the right? Okay, see that funny shape there? Okay, let's click on that and see what that definition is for 42. What does it say? Prime farmland if drained, very poorly drained. Let's go have a look at that again. They're calling it, okay. Let's lighten up those colors. A little slide rail. Yeah. You can see two lakes, two bodies of water. We got 65, they actually captured a part of the pool. But you can see all the way around most of that, 42, the green color, blue-green, is laid on top of two lakes. There's a little bit of land right in the middle. You have the northern lake and you have the southern lake. And they called that poorly drained, but it said prime if drained on the definition. Click on that one more time. Prime farmland is drained. They want the lakes to be drained. They completely missed that water from the elevation that they took the photos from. Click on the purple now, please. Up there at the north end, you can see where the lake's sticking out beyond. Yeah, we can darken up the purple for just a moment. And you see the purple goes into the water. Can we click on that color and have it tell us what it is per the soil study? Monterey rock outcrop, not prime farmland, well drained. Their rock outcrop, well drained, is, I measured over 180 feet into the water. Completely misindexed. Not only that, but they completely misinterpreted that. You can see it on our page here too, what they were looking at when they saw it. Right there in the mountains. They completely missed it. That shows you that they are not, didn't miss it. Completely missed it. That's all we needed that for, Eric. So we've developed the fact that their maps were wrong, they were improperly labeled. There is none of that prime land farm soil. We have this basically lines up with what is designated to the south in orange color, which was the farmland of statewide importance, which is not recognized as prime farm soils.
Yeah.
You noted farmland of statewide importance has not been recognized as prime farmland soil by the comprehensive
Yeah,
plan.
and then I think I'll take over here for the rest of this portion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so as we have seen from the experts, the classification is wrong. And that was the best evidence to show that there was a reason not to grant these zoning ordinances. When you look at the properties around, it is clear that the 10-acre definition is very common all throughout that area. And the comp plan does talk about the area of city impact, but this is not, I repeat, a requirement. It is simply an indicator. It may be. It goes to point towards the spectrum of close to civilization versus out away from everything. And this is afforded land protection or fire protection. When you look at how far it is from two stations, is 6 minutes from one and 11 from the other. So marginally increasing the population density here is not going to have an impact on services. The road, I mean, everybody's driven around the county. As far as county roads go, this is a beautiful road. It is maintained and re-gravelled once to twice a year by the landowners. And this picture was taken in early February, right after winter. Many of us wish our roads looked like that after the winter we had. Again, you guys know this area. This is right next to vehicular arteries. And we go back to the commissioner's report, which is the people used to reviewing these things. No problems with the rezoning and unanimously recommended it. So what we're asking you guys to do is to approve the application because it meets all of the criteria and is a slight deviation within an already defined zoning structure in the comp plan. No agricultural soils, ag and forestry remains available, and it does have all of the services. So at this point, we would like to open it to the commissioners for any questions and to understand where you're coming from.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant?
I do have a number of questions. So, focusing in for a few moments on the soils component, appreciate you bringing in samples. For me, the main question is, have you brought these samples to a qualified lab to evaluate and determine what kind of soil we're dealing with? The comprehensive plan has numerous soils listed that are prime farmland soils. I count 7 of which would be a silt loam, ashy silt loam, or other type of combination of soil types that would not require sand to be in them in order for them to be a prime farm soil. This may indicate that it is not the type that was on the map. However, I would want to see testing to show me what type of soil it is if we're going to try and qualify it as not being prime farm soil.
And on that, before I give it to the expert, I will just note that, yes, we have shown that the classification being given and that the county had been relying on is wrong.
So my question was, has it been tested by a qualified lab? Have you determined the actual soil composition?
We have not have it tested by a lab. We had done 2 different tests that are recognized in the sciences as indicating the type of soil. I'll give it to Dan to answer the rest of that.
Understood, and that was presented. What I'm indicating is showing with the sieve analysis, essentially by using the water separation, that you don't appear to see any significant amount of sand in the sample that you took, doesn't mean that we don't have prime farmland soil based on the other types of soils that qualify as prime farmland that don't have to have sand within them. So without having an actual qualified lab test showing us what type of soil we have, I cannot confidently say that we don't have prime farmland soil present. I understand the question about the accuracy of the method of which the soil mapping is done. It is what our code relies on as our primary basis for making determinations of soil types. And so without a lab test, it's hard for me to rely on indicating that it's not a prime soil simply because it doesn't have sand in any significant quantity. The other thing that I'm noting by looking at the example you pointed out a little bit to the southeast of the subject parcel, the pond area, and then the area where it indicated it was very poorly drained but would be prime farmland if drained. For example, the area that is designated as the water does appear upon closer inspection of the aerial to in fact be a deep pocket of water. The area around it and to the north is clearly shown in the aerial as being very shallowly inundated with water. And this may only be a seasonal inundation, I'm not sure. It certainly appears as if it could actually be drained and farmed if someone chose to do so by looking at the aerial evidence. So I'm not convinced with that argument that's been presented, and I don't see data that tells us what in fact you believe the soils are based on lab testing or a qualified soil.
Okay, bonus payments, 7.
Bill, you're not on mute.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
on that one, two things
Sorry.
that made the expert provide his feedback. One, I do not believe that everybody who applies for a zoning ordinance is required to test their soil. If it is, I missed it in the written processes required for zoning applications. But I will let Dan answer the questions as to the characteristics of this soil that do not show it to be prime land as identified in the express ordinances of the county.
And to the point you just raised, sir, the code indicates that we were supposed to rely on the soil mapping. And if I recall correctly from the prior hearing, Mr. Provolt offered to go do soil samples. And like I said, without having it done by a soil scientist or a qualified lab, I'm not going to rely on referring to that as an expert evidence.
So can I, before we go back to a presentation from you, Commissioner Donkey, do you have a question to ask of the applicant at this time, or?
No, not at this point,
Okay.
since they've already answered the question that it wasn't tested by a lab or soil scientist.
Commissioner Corn, do you have a question for the applicant?
I do. I was just, I was curious about other utilities in the area. It looks like there's natural gas there. Does it have fiber at all, or is it close to fiber optics, or any other utilities that most rural areas would not have?
I'm not aware of any fiber optics. I'm assuming they're headed that direction someday. They seem to be spreading out across the county pretty quickly. You see them running alongside the highways and so forth.
Can I pause for a second? Are you giving a comment on soil, and is it you who's answering that question, that Commissioner? I want to be clear on who's the presenter of the
Yeah.
file. So,
For the record, Dan is the one familiar with the local conditions as an experienced surveyor of the county lands for the last several decades. I am mostly providing the legal background as to the standards that need to be applied and ensuring that if there is any special burdens being placed on this particular landowner, that the
Okay.
record reflects them.
thank you.
Okay, as far as soils go, it makes the
I'm
most.
going to pause you. His question was about utilities and fiber optics, not soil.
Okay, yeah, I thought I answered that I'm not aware of any fiber optics yet, as of yet. I'm assuming that they have this grand plan. I didn't go in and ask them. I think your standard and typical utilities are provided for in our presentation. They have gas, natural gas, they have power, they have internet, they have the fire services and so forth. The road's great condition. It's not something that would be looked at and go, oh, you're having a hard time getting there, you're missing some of your utilities and so forth, and that's more like a 20 because it's a little more remote. As we told before, it is not remote whatsoever. Everybody knows we're.
So I'm going to ask you to confine to what he's asking you, and because he's asking specific questions, not in generalities.
Okay.
So Commissioner Corn, do you have further questions for him?
No, thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, so at this time, we will go back to, can you put your thing up of where we are now? I believe we're on public comment.
Public comment.
So we go against, neutral, and for. All right, we are at public testimony. So the first one, we will start with testimony in support of the project, then neutral testimony, and then testimony in opposition. So there is a 3-minute time limit. And then we will do applicant rebuttal, and then the board will deliberate. So first up is, what? Oh. In support, are there people here in support of the project that would like to give a comment? Anybody online? Okay, so is there anybody neutral on this project that wants to give a comment?
One online.
All right, are we betting on whether or not this is really neutral? It's Matt Linscott.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Linscott.
Yeah, I tried to raise my hand when you said in support. It's kind of interesting because as the planning commission, we're getting rid of soils and slopes as a criteria or a descriptor in any of our zones, and this is exactly the reason why. Right from the USDA NRCS Soil Survey Manual, in Chapter 2, it states, the maps and tables may not be valid for site-specific applications. On-site investigation is needed for uses that require precise knowledge of soil properties. Soil maps in this survey are not designed for site-specific land evaluations. For uses requiring detailed soils information, on-site investigations are necessary. So this is one of the primary reasons why we decided to go ahead and get rid of soils, because, those maps are from 1982. They're from, I thought it was 17,000 feet, but I could be wrong. Maybe they're 15,000 feet. But they can be horribly inaccurate. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So there was no one in neutral, anybody in opposition of this project?
We have one more hand up online.
I say the name again?
Dave Bowman.
Oh, Mr. Bowman.
Hey, hi, good afternoon, Dave Bowman, Bonner County. I want to comment somewhat along the same lines as Mr. Linscott. The kind of ridiculousness of talking about soil, but I have a different angle than he does, as normal. The whole Selly Valley, and this would apply in the Hoodoo Valley and other areas too, is largely agricultural. And the agriculture that's there doesn't depend on prime soils. They're growing hay and raising cattle and horses, primarily. Alfalfa, maybe some other stuff, but I mean, none of it requires prime soil, which is why I have been pushing the planning commission to get that stuff out of the zoning. It just doesn't make any sense. And you're going to see more of that coming. I'd like to respond to a couple of things that Mr. Cardona said. I don't remember the precise words, but that the owners, when they bought this property, had a right to expect to be able to subdivide. There's no right like that. You buy, and first of all, I don't necessarily object to this zone change. I don't think AF10 is necessarily inappropriate here because of the proximity to Culver Road. And proximity to other 10 acres. I'm also not a fan of individual parcels being rezoned for benefit of only the owner. But there's no perceived right to be able to subdivide below the zoning that you bought in. And anybody that says that, that's just ridiculous. The zoning commission never saw a project that they didn't like. To say that they are experts is a gross misrepresentation. They're not experts. They're lay people who are volunteered for that job, and they are supposed to get good data analysis from the planning department. Clearly, that, generally speaking, does not happen. In terms of property rights, if this file were denied, if you look at the property rights, the checklist from the Attorney General, this thing could be denied, and it would go right down the list of the checklist from the Attorney General to ensure that their property rights are being protected, and this would fit the bill. With a denial, there would be no violation of property rights. And that's in the Idaho Constitution as well. If the government tells physical occupation of the property, invasion of the property, or eliminates all economic value of the property, would be denial of rights. None of those are the case here. And let's see. Oh, one correction. The statement that this property is 6 minutes from one fire station and 11 minutes from the other, it's 11 minutes. The station that's 6 minutes away is essentially a garage in which fire apparatus are parked. There's no one there to respond. And I guess that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments on this file? All right, we will go to applicant rebuttal.
We very simply ask you to hold this application to the standards, not to create special standards. If the county wanted to have soil analysis done by a lab, the county could require that. The county has not required such. As such, it should not be requiring from this client, from this particular property owner. Let's hold them to the same standard. We know that the soils maps are wrong. We have the best data available here that allows you to make a conclusion. If you want to change the law to have a higher standard, change the law. Until you do such, please just treat this application like any other and recognize that this property is in the vicinity of urban services, that the uses allowed remain essentially the same between 20 and 10, and that it won't have that at all almost impact on the county. The services can still be provided, the road access is good, the maintenance is good, and don't create special standards for my client to jump through. That's not what we're here for. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we will move into deliberation by the Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Korn, any comments on this file?
It seems to me that the Ag Forest 10 is the appropriate zone from everything that I see. I'm glad to see and I'm glad to hear that we're getting rid of the soil types off of our list of things that needs to be checked off because, I mean, we could shoot holes in that all day long. So I'm not even going to discuss the soils. I'm just going to get rid of that. It is a suburban area. Looking at the maps and looking at the resources that are there, not too many people, if any, in the rural areas have natural gas. And I asked the question about fiber optics. They, just a couple of years ago, I'm familiar because it's in my area, that they did put fiber optics in. If you guys will recall, there was a big stink about the 5G going in just up the road from this property. The Starlink is connected to the fiber optics, which runs down to Northside School. So the fiber optics is there, right there in Colburn Culver Road, which really, again, suburban, not rural. We're just over 2 miles away from the nearest city. 2 miles to me is not rural, suburban. And looking at what our rules are to designate the Ag Forest 20 and the Ag Forest 10. Ag Forest 10, every box is checked, in my opinion. The wording is kind of really wonky, within or adjacent to an ACI. Adjacent is a word to be kind of, I guess, determined. I would like to see that removed too, but that's something for a different day. I don't think we're gonna have Ag Forest 20 right up to city line. So I think that the zoning commission made a right decision on this.
Anything else?
Not right now.
Commissioner Domke?
So, as was stated earlier, actually by the applicant's counsel, we do have to follow the standards set forth in the code today, not what people want it to be, not what it might be changed to in the future. And so there was no standard required by the county to perform soil testing. The applicant proposed to do soil testing. They didn't stipulate what that would be. I have no evidence to prove to me that there is not prime agricultural soil on the property, because we don't know what kind of soil is before us. The soil map is the standard by which our code tells us to classify and determine what type of soils we're dealing with in making these determinations. And so I don't have evidence to suggest that I should consider otherwise. The area is characterized by both agriculture and forestry uses, as can be seen and as tax exemptions indicate. And then the other stipulation for Ag Forest 20 standards is that one or more of the following. I'm going to go to the last item: the large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. We have tracts of land that are 20 acres and larger throughout this area that may be used if they choose to, and some of which are being used for agricultural purposes. So in my mind, going through the checklist of the standards, it does meet the agricultural forest 20 standards. When I look at the agricultural forest 10 standards, does not feature prime agricultural soils. I don't, again, have clear evidence that that's the case. And within or adjacent to an ACI, adjacent is not clearly defined, I agree. However, if we were going to say that being 2 miles or more away was close enough, then the entire Sally Valley would essentially not be appropriate for agriculture. So I don't see that to be an appropriate argument. So I can't check the boxes, in my opinion, to go through and say that Ag Forest 10 meets those standards. So I just simply don't see how I can look at the current standards required by our county code and say that it meets the requirement for the requested Ag Forest 10. I do see, looking at the comp plan, that I believe it's in accordance with the comp plan, since in both cases it's still an ag forest land use, or land designation, I should say. So that to me makes sense, but I simply can't check the right boxes when I go through facts, in my opinion, to say that it meets the Ag Forest 10 standards.
Anything else?
Oh, no, I'll leave it at that.
Director Gabel, can you bring up page 12 of 21 of the staff report, please? Or Alex, sorry.
You said page 12, Commissioner?
Yes, please. It's a photograph, the green one that shows the property, that one. So when you look at the designated property, it's the one in purple. It is completely surrounded by larger tracts of land. And so that when you look at that in line with what Commissioner Domke said, that's one of the things that wasn't commented on by applicant as to why we would change that one to a 10, when one of the things that we're supposed to do is preserving the opportunity for agricultural on larger tracts of land. And when you look at the staff report on page 16 of 21, within 1,200 feet of this property, there are 19 properties. 11 of these properties, including the project site, are size 20 acres or larger, ranging from 20 to 80 acres. I also agree that this property fits in line more with agricultural 20 than it does 10. And it's not just about prime ag soil, because we're not testing all of the soil on it, but you do have the opportunity to grow, and that valley is used for that. But when you look at that map and you see all of the larger tracts of land, we would be decreasing the opportunity for larger scale agricultural pursuits, which is what our comprehensive plan doesn't want us to do. And so in line with looking at the use table, weighing what has a greater standard, even if you removed prime agricultural soils from it, it is more in line with agricultural 20 than it is with agricultural 10. And specifically, that map really shows that that area is set aside for larger pieces for agricultural pursuits. I concur with it, and it is an accurate statement that when we buy property, what we are entitled to what we purchased. It is a right to request a change, but it's not a taking of anyone's property right to say that it remains what you purchased it at. And so I kind of reject that idea presented by applicant that they are essentially owed a zone change, because what you can depend on is that it is agricultural 20, forestry 20 standards being applied to it. To me, changing that to a 10 alters that whole section of that particular map, and more of the ag forest 20 standards apply. I think the applicant relied heavily on a comment about whether or not there are prime agricultural soils, but even if you removed that, you're basically still in Ag 20. There's not a single item that's missed here. So for me, this is an Ag Forest 20. The current designation is appropriate for this file. I can check more of those boxes than I can on the other one, and that map is very clear that that's an Ag 20.
So if I may, I'd like to respectfully disagree that it's surrounded by large tracts of land. Looks to me on the map that we're looking at right there, to the west is 2 10-acre parcels. To the east is at least 4 5-acre parcels. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what it looks like. That large tract of land to the north is zoned Ag Forest 10, interesting enough. So I have a hard time with the comment that it's surrounded by large tracts of land. Looking at the Ag Forest 20 standards, it says that one or more of the following has to apply, and characterized by slopes of 30% or greater. I don't see that. Number 2, access may be absent or limited to substandard road systems. As the applicant showed us, that road is probably one of the nicest looking gravel roads I've seen in February, so I don't think that applies. The only one that you're saying might apply would be large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. That one is kind of vague, in my opinion. Doesn't say that it needs to be surrounded by large tracts of land. The word may always comes into play. So I personally would have a hard time hanging my hat on that one. So again, I just have a hard time checking the boxes on the Ag Forest 20 standards.
When I'm using the staff report, page 16 of 21, that identifies what the properties surrounding this property are. And so there, I read specifically out of the staff report that of the 19 properties surrounding, 11 of those properties are size 20 acres or larger. So that's the data that I use to say that it fits within that table that says large tracts of land. And the characterization of the area fits with, when you look at that map, the lighter green is 10, the darker green is 20 and above, and that's where it's fitting. And so it is characterized, that area surrounding that property is characterized by larger tracts of land. So that's the, it's not my opinion, it's the data that was in the staff report.
And it's unfortunate that the staff report didn't mention the properties to the east and west of it.
Any further deliberation by the board?
Commissioner Williams, can I ask a housekeeping question?
Sure.
I have to admit, I don't think I've ever seen bags of dirt introduced as evidence at a hearing like this. So congratulations for throwing a legit curveball to the applicants. My question is just how we do a good job of making sure those get put into the record in a way that if we have to, we can transmit to the district court. Would all the parties agree that photographing those bags just to show what their contents are would be sufficient to just preserve them in the record in case we do need to take this matter on appeal? I'm just not sure how we would provide those to the court in a banker's box. Photographing would be much easier.
That would be much easier, but the way it reads is that when people have evidence, they're supposed to tag it and give it to us. So I would argue that the board would need to keep these bags of sand for the duration of an appeal process to deliver them as we received them versus because one of the opportunities that the applicant offered was for people to touch the item that's in the bag. And
I'm just saying if the applicants would agree to that, and they would, if they agree that it would be adequate for purposes of appeal, then I just wanted to give them that opportunity right now. If not, we'll just hang on to them.
I'm kind of saying I would rather that and someone on the board can challenge this. I think the board should hang on to them for the duration since they're the evidence presented in this hearing versus a photograph to preserve all of what the applicant presented to the board in its full state.
I'd agree.
Okay. Sorry, Bill, we're going to hold on to
Concur.
the sand.
A photograph doesn't really address the issue at hand, I don't believe.
Okay. Anything further from the board?
I'll just add to the prior conversation that as I read in full the county code for AF 20, it refers to areas where large tracts of land may be devoted to ag forest production. So that is, we have to interpret the term area, and that means more than just the contiguous parcels. In my opinion, we have to look at the surrounding area, the context, and we're clearly within an agricultural area, in my opinion. The Selly Valley is known for its agriculture as one of the few places in our county that has the capability to do that well and has a history of it. And so to me, that is clear check of that requirement under the AF 20 standards.
I guess I'd like to just follow up on that really I don't see any difference, and I would like someone to show me the difference of how you would have a different farm on 10 acres versus 20. We're not talking 100-acre piece of land here. We're talking 10 acres versus 20. I was grew up on an orange grove of 9 acres, and let me tell you, it's quite a bit of land, especially when you got to move the sprinklers around by hand. So I would beg the question of how are you going to farm it different? So even if you were to rezone that into 210s instead of 120, I think the same farming practices and everything could still apply. Just wanted to follow up with that.
So Commissioner, I would say first and foremost, when people operate farms as a business, economy of scale matters and factors in. So let's say you want to do hay. things of that nature. You've got your cost of equipment and things, and so the smaller you get, the less economical it tends to be to make those investments in that equipment or infrastructure and then have a payback make sense for you. It's a little different if you're just talking about someone's, personal garden just for their own use, but if somebody wants to do something that ends up becoming more commercial agriculture, things of that nature, then I think we are degrading that opportunity. And I do believe it's incumbent on us to try and preserve these larger tracts of agricultural land to the best of our ability in compliance with the county code. And that's why I take the position that I have.
I think I rely also on 12.322, where it specifically does highlight what Commissioner Domke commented on, which is the purpose is to preserve, protect, and maintain that type of area. And I think that when you look at the map and the designation as a 20, that it fits more of those characteristics. And so for that reason, and I think 12.322 does explain that very well. Any further deliberation by the board? All right, at this time, we'll entertain a motion.
I move to recommend denial of this project, file ZC 0011-24, requesting a zone change from agricultural forest 20 to agricultural forest 10 to the Board of County Commissioners based upon the following conclusions of law. Conclusion 1, the proposal is not in conflict with the policies of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Conclusion 2, this proposal was reviewed for compliance with Title 12 Bonner County Revised Code and was not found to be in compliance. Conclusion 3, the proposal is not in accord with the purpose of the Agricultural Forestry 10 zoning district provided at Chapter 3, Title 12 Bonner County Revised Code. This decision is based upon the evidence submitted up to the time of the staff report was prepared, the testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law as set forth in the staff report as amended during the hearing, and direct planning staff to draft written findings and conclusions to reflect this motion, have the chair sign, and transmit to all interested parties. This action does not result in a taking of private property. The action that could be taken, if any, to obtain the zone change is to file a new application with the planning department and meet the standards required by Bonner County Revised Code, or pursue such remedies as may be applicable at Title 67, Chapter 65, Idaho Code.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second to further it.
All right.
Commissioners, if I may, sorry. So it appears your motion is different than the one that was in the staff report. It may have been a leftover from the zoning commission motion because it stated that you would recommend denial. You guys wouldn't be recommending anything, you would be moving to deny, if that is the motion that would be on the table.
Thank you for the clarification. I see that in the language now. So I would like to amend that motion to strike the word recommend so that it simply says I move to deny this project.
There's a motion to amend. Is there a second?
I'll second to further it.
All right. Deliberation on the amended motion. We should just kill the first one. That's all. Kill the first one first. All right. Let's vote down the first motion that you gave, and then we only have the amended motion left. All right, you understand that? He made a motion that he needed to correct, so let's just vote that one down, and then we'll have his amended motion as the only one left. Ready? Roll call vote. No.
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 All right, and so now we're on the amended motion. So deliberation on the amended motion. No further deliberation? Any further deliberation? Okay, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes?
No.
All right. So we are at 3:00, and this has 3 more hearings on it. What would you like to do?
Commissioner Williams, there is 2 files on here that do need to be heard. We are at the end of the reconsideration timeline. The board is, the board would need to provide a written decision to the applicants by Monday, I believe it's the 13th? No, sorry, 15th. 14th. One of those days. The 14th of
Whatever Monday.
this upcoming Monday. So if the intention is to end this hearing at 3:30, I would ask that we hear those files today.
But we have to make a decision by Monday.
That is correct. If no decision is made, then the previous decision would stand.
Just for a point, we didn't advertise this meeting with an end time. It's just on the commissioner's calendar.
It gave an end time for the commissioners at 3:30. So what Veronica said was she can squeeze one file in at 11 a.m. tomorrow, possibly two if we worked through lunch tomorrow. The other option is to arrive at 8 a.m. with a hard stop at 10 and do all three.
I'm not
Tomorrow
available at
morning.
8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
So 11 a.m. tomorrow morning for two.
I can stay later today if that is beneficial.
So for there are two files here that have to go together. Does the person who has the appeal of the cup want to go tomorrow and not sit through two? Who is the appeal of the cup? Okay, so would you guys like to leave and go tomorrow at 11?
Yeah, that works for us.
Okay, so and then we can just push through the two today instead of having them sit and wait. Is that all right? So we will entertain a motion to continue that particular file.
I believe Ron and I have a meeting scheduled for 11 tomorrow, but we can try to reschedule that because I think it's just internal with staff. So,
There was public coming too.
oh, is there?
It's not on your calendar.
I believe we can do noon tomorrow. I think that's what Veronica was stating in that email is.
How long is your meeting at 11?
I believe it's scheduled for an hour. Mr. Provolt represents the AM and ZC files that are on reconsideration, and he stated that he could waive the 60-day requirement for us to hold a hearing if Bill wants to weigh in on that. But that way we can hold the hearing after Monday next week.
I don't want to be rushed in their files on the two that are combined together, but I equally feel bad that this will be the second time this file has come here and we have let you go. And so, to me, the tower one, if they're agreeable to go on a different day, then to push them to tomorrow at noon, if you guys can't move your 11 o'clock, and then push through hearing the files of reconsideration of AM 000424, and then the zone change. What does the board think about that?
I can make that work if that works for Commissioner Coleman.
Commissioner Corn, it would require you to do a hard stop at noon so that we could hear their tower.
We can do a hard stop at noon.
Yeah.
Okay, so at this time, we'll entertain a motion to
Continue.
continue for that file for tomorrow.
All right. I move to continue the public hearing for file CUP 0012-24 to April 10th, 2025 at 12 p.m.
There's a motion and a second. Is there a second? Any public comment on this? Seeing none, deliberation by the board. Thank you for being agreeable to changing your time. Sorry. All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, at this time, the board will hold reconsideration for file AM 0004-24, comprehensive plan map amendment.
I could ask for a brief recess.
Okay, it is 3:10. We will take a 5-minute recess. So on future planning, when they all have attorneys, we need to give more time, because I'm gonna cancel my appointment today, but
We are going to hear those two files and then.
yeah.
That's what we just decided.
Okay. I don't know why that would be.
All right, it is 3:15, and we are returning from a recess for, now we're ready to hear reconsideration of file AM 000424. At this time, we'll call for conflicts of interest.
Commissioner Corn has none?
Commissioner Domke has none.
Commissioner Williams has no conflicts. With that, we'll turn it over to the Assistant Director, Alex Fain.
Thank you, Commissioners. Alex Fain, Planning Staff. So this is file AM 0004-24, a request for a comprehensive plan map amendment from rural residential to resort community. These are the standards at which this application was reviewed against, and this was also reviewed against the implementation component and the land use component of the comprehensive plan. So this is a reconsideration. I apologize for the small font, but I will read it all for you. Every applicant or affected person seeking judicial review of the board's final decision must first file with the board a motion for reconsideration of the board's decision, specifying deficiencies in the decision within 14 days of the date of the decision, along with the applicable fee. A failure to seek reconsideration is also a failure to exhaust administrative remedies. The board may consider the reconsideration motion as scheduled on an open business meeting agenda and determine whether to grant or deny the request. If the board grants the reconsideration in whole or in part, a hearing before the board will be scheduled to address the specific deficiencies identified by the applicant or affected person and to allow interested persons to have an opportunity to be heard. If the board denies the request for reconsideration, it shall promptly notify the parties in writing. Public notice of the public hearing on the reconsideration, identifying the specific deficiencies alleged in the reconsideration request will be provided as follows, including a notice to agencies at least 15 days prior to the public hearing. The director shall send notice to all political subdivisions providing services with the planning jurisdiction, including school districts and the manager or person in charge of the local public airport. At least 15 days for a legal notice, the director shall publish a notice of the time and place in the official newspaper or paper of general circulation in the county. And a radius notice, which will be provided in the same manner as originally provided on the application. Following the hearing on the reconsideration, the board may affirm, reverse, or modify its prior decision and shall provide a written decision to the applicant and the affected persons within 60 days of the receipt of the request for reconsideration. If the board fails to timely decide, the original decision of the board will stand. The staff analysis is on January 22nd, 2025. The Board of County Commissioners held a duly noticed hearing in which they denied this project in 2-1 vote. The written decision was given to the applicant and their representative on January 28th, 2025. The appeal period for final decisions by the Board of County Commissioners is 14 days from the date of the written decision letter. On February 11th, 2025, the applicant's representative filed a letter to request reconsideration of the board's decision and paid the appropriate fees. The applicant has met all of the necessary requirements for this reconsideration, and the Board of County Commissioners voted to reconsider this file on February 25th, 2025. The Planning Department provided public notice to agencies and taxing districts, neighbors within 300 feet of the property line, and to the Bonner County Daily Bee on March 11th, 2025, meeting the minimum noticing requirements as set forth in this section. The board is hearing this file within 60 days of the request being filed, and all the requirements of BCRC 12-263 have been met. So the applicant is requesting a comprehensive plan map amendment from rural residential to resort community. The 1.81 acre property is currently zoned rural 5. Project site is located off Creekside Lane via Highway 200 in Section 21, Township 57 North, Range 1 East, Boise Meridian. And this request was evaluated against the standards for rural residential and resort community. And this is a better view of the site plan provided by the applicant's representative. This is an unplatted parcel that is approximately 1.81 acres. It is zoned rural 5 and has a land use designation of rural residential. The property is accessed off Creekside Lane, a privately owned and maintained road via Highway 200, a state of Idaho owned and maintained public right-of-way. This picture on the right-hand side shows the current comprehensive plan map designations. The blue is rural residential, and the shaded areas to the north and the west are resort community. So the site does contain map slopes of 0 to 29.9%. The site does not contain any mapped wetlands, nor does it contain any mapped water bodies. It is located within Special Flood Hazard Area A. It is served by an individual well and individual septic system, served by Sam Owen Fire District, Avista Utilities, and Lake Pend School District number 84. So a comprehensive list of the agencies and taxing districts that were notified of this proposal can be found in the attached Appendix A. We received comments from Lake Pend School District, Panhandle Health District, and Idaho Transportation Department. And we received no comment replies from the Idaho Department of Fish and Game, Kootenai-Pend Sewer District, and Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. All the other agencies that were notified of this application did not reply. And we have received public comments, and that was included in your packet today. So for the rural residential designation, rural residential in areas provides for residential development in areas where urban services are not available, and slopes may vary up to 30%. These areas include hazard areas and critical wildlife habitats where lower densities reduce potential impacts to resources and exposures to loss of property and lives. Small-scale agricultural uses and residential development are permitted. Staff stated this area is located within the service area of the Trestle Creek Sewer District. However, the applicants have not provided a will serve letter from the sewer district to show that they would or could receive service from the district. The applicant has indicated that this parcel would be served by an individual septic system. Currently, the property is not being served by urban water or sewer service. The parcel does contain slopes of between 0 and 29.9%, but it appears to be mostly flat. This parcel is not located within critical wildlife habitat as indicated by the USFWS maps. It is located within special flood hazard areas A and E. Or excuse me, it's just special flood hazard area A. I apologize. Per the applicant, the intended use of this parcel would be mini storage. At this time, there has been no residential use proposed on this parcel. The surrounding areas uses appear to be residential rather than agricultural. The soils on the property consist of both not prime farmland and prime farmland classified soils. However, the characterizing soil on this property is Bonner silt loam, and it is classified as prime farmland. It should be noted that the comprehensive plan indicates that Bonner silt loam does have severe limitations in what can be grown in these soils, as Bonner County does not have an irrigation district. The resort community provides for urban-like densities for areas centered around the recreational areas developed for winter and water sports, golf and hiking, where urban services are provided. So the parcel is in Hope near other resort community designated parcels. Hope and East Hope areas have several parks, public marinas, restaurants, and resorts. Recreational opportunities could continue to grow in this area. And this property is 1.81 acres, which could be considered an urban-like density as it is below the lot size minimum for higher density zones such as recreation and suburban. This property is currently not being served by urban water or sewer service, but it is located within the Trestle Creek Sewer District, and the applicant has not provided a will serve letter for service to this parcel. In addition to this application, the applicants have applied for a zone change on the same property from Rural 5 to Recreation to allow for the potential for additional recreational and other uses as allowed under the BCRC Title 12, Chapter 3 use tables. In the higher density zoning districts such as recreation, the lot size minimum is 2.5 acres when no urban services are provided and 20,000 square feet when only urban sewer is provided. That concludes my presentation. I can answer any questions if you have any for me.
Does the board have any questions for staff?
I do. I didn't hear it mentioned, that map is a pretty good map that's up there right now. So this is 1.81 acres. Do we know the parcel size, the lot sizes that surrounds that, particularly to the north and the east?
I could find that information. I believe I included it in the zone change staff report and not in this staff report.
I could read some of them out right now, Commissioner. The lots that are abutting or contiguous, essentially to the northwest, just above, are 1/2 acre, 0.18, 0.036, that sort of alleyway. We have 0.32, 0.34, so everything I'm seeing is 1/2 acre or less in that area. And then the one directly to the east or the northeast side, the largest one there is 1.2. And you have a 0.42, 0.55 to the south. You have a 0.55. Were you asking about across the street as well?
No, I was just trying to get an idea. So this is 1.81 acres. So this is probably the largest piece of land in that whole area, it looks like.
Unless you go to the south, where there is the RV park, that's a 4.78, and 2.5 to the east of that one. So yeah, I'd say to the north and to the east, they are smaller lots compared to the subject parcel.
Okay.
And then to the south, they are larger than the subject parcel.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a table on page 4 of their report that shows you if you wanted to look at the surrounding north, east, south, and west, and tell you what the designation is. In this map,
Yeah,
this
this one.
page, no, on this page, see where it tells you this is the site, then they put the zone and that page. Any further questions for staff?
I don't have any.
We will turn it over to the applicant then.
Dan Provo, project representative. I would like to first read what we had for the reconsideration. So when we were last heard, we were denied on 4 particular points. Number 1, lack of service to the property. So our clarification is the property is served by an individual well, and it also has a PhD permitted septic system, tank and drain field, both of which considered by the Bonner County Code 12821 to be a definition of urban services when accompanied by a sewer management agreement. In addition to this option, we are able to secure a will serve for a private sewer and water facility to use the adjoining Ponderay RV Park to the south. We also have a well to the northeast, and we have a well to the southwest that are also owned by the same person that has a well on each of those. We can do an urban system and agreement with that. So we have our PhD and our water development agreement would give us the definition of urban services, which is required. Properties located in the Sam Owen Fire District, there's an urban service. Properties served by Avista Utilities, urban service. Properties located in the Lake Ponderay School District, there's a service. The property is served by Highway 200 and Creekside Lane. It actually adjoins Creekside Lane and the highway. The private easement owned by the applicant is is, you can see it, that's the strange little arm that comes around. That's the road owned by the applicant. It's been in use for many decades by the property owners who own land. ITD built an encroachment apron to that road using their own specifications. That was the time they put in the new bridge. They put in the center turning lane. If you're coming to the southeast towards Hope, you would have the ability to get out of the lane of traffic and turn left. When you're coming in from the other direction, there is a deceleration and an acceleration area we can see on some aerial views. So we have safe approach from either direction. Point number 2. The property is contiguous with residential properties. Okay, so the site is located near residential parcels. However, a mix on non-residential parcels and uses have not been taken into consideration. That's what the claim was, and that was a rebuttal and a clarification. We have, in the mixed portions here, we have Ponderay RV Park to the south adjoining. We have Selkirk Service Repair and Fabrication across Creekside Lane, adjacent to or adjoining actually the property on the road. Trestle Creek RV Park, adjoining to the north side of the parcels that are to our northwest. And that RV park to the north has a common boundary with 7 of the home site parcels that are around the 1/3 acre to 1/4 acre, all the way along the Creekside Lane, creek in the backyard, and they have a common line with the RV park to the northwest. We have Bonner County Homeless Task Force adjoins the Trestle Creek RV Park to the north. 3 residential parcels on the property directly front on Highway 200, fairly noisy in there. Across from that, we have the railroad track. We have going to Trestle Creek Park and Jeb and Margaret's RV Park across the way. They're blasting their horn both directions. It's not a quiet neighborhood by any means. Trestle Creek Park is public beach. It has a boat launch. It is a recreational use. Jeb and Margaret's recreational. They have boat docks inside of it. To the south, the Ponderay RV Park is fully loaded, and it adjoins the Oderkirk parcel, which is just to the southeast of us. I'd like to let me go ahead and finish reading this. I'm going to throw some pictures at you. So the conclusion is, this is an existing mixed residential and recreational use area and meets the necessary conditions of the code. Point number 3, access to the property has not been approved by ITD. Clarification is, access has not been denied along or to anyone using Creekside Lane. All it is, ITD noted that there is no encroachment permit on file. That's just a technicality. The access point cannot be denied. You'd have to deny it to all 30 parcels, 30 residential parcels back in there. If they shut that off, they built the access to the highway when they did the improvement for the bridge and the highway itself. They built it to their own spec. So the specs are fine. It's not, we have to build it to the spec. It's already there. They built it. So the road's been in use for decades. The conclusion is this item does not prevent a comp plan or a zone change for access reasons. Point number 4, the parcel size of 1.8 being appropriate for rural 5 designation classification. Rural 5 requires a minimum of 5 acres. We've got many parcels in there that are sub 5. We have many parcels that are sub 1. They do not fit in a 5-acre parcel. the RV park to the south, the RV park to the north, the RV park across the highway are not a residential use activity, yet there they are. They've been there a long time, many years. So the conclusion is the parcel size of 1.8 acres is more appropriate for the target zone of recreation, which is 0 to 2.5 acres. It fits well within what we're looking to do. So I took some shots off of the GIS and color coded. We're going to start with one which we highlighted some significance. Parcels in there. This is kind of an overview of what we've got. You got the, of course, up to the east there, Vista owns quite a bit of land. You have Memory Maker Investments. As we come down, you see all the white parcels. Every one of those whites is sub 5. They're all in the R5 zone, yet every single one of those is sub 5. The larger squares are 2.5. Everything else is sub 1 and on down. It does not fit well with R5. The yellow, the three yellows are all RV service, RV parks, right in our vicinity. The blue is the subject parcel on the east side of the highway. The blue between the highway and the railroad is an existing storage unit. The pink down on the southwest side there on the lake is the park. You can see everything is well within this vicinity. One more green one to the north, east side of the highway there is the homeless task force. They have 5 buildings in there, and of course their deal there was to deal with the homeless. I'm not sure exactly what all they had going. All right. Picture number 2 gets us in a little closer, and I went ahead and numbered the lots, and I also gave them a size, the area. So we can look directly at the sizes. Thank you. Big yellow RV mobile home park to the west, Trestle Creek Park to the southwest, RV Park directly to the south. We have the dark blue one north of that, which is our subject property. RV Park to the north, also yellow homeless task forces, so green, everything in white, sub 5s. And you can see the area there. We have our own little activity of small parcels that are adjoining or adjacent to our subject parcel, but if you look upstream there, you have 13 more parcels, around a half-acre apiece. Those happen to be in a different, actually they're in the resort comp plan. So I zoomed in a little further. And we're right on top of us, and went ahead and labeled the areas, acreage on the ones that are adjoining to us. We got the highway and the railroad. Of course, we mentioned the horn blasting there. You got the RV park to the south and to the north, and the homeless task force. You have all these surrounding parcels. All these uses and sizes are currently in the R5 zone. They're not suitable for an R5 zone. And they're all circled by resort uses. This is also from the GIS. I went ahead and pulled up the current zoning map. and labeled each of the uses again. So we're looking at R5 is the light blue, and the red is the recreational. So you see the project site, of course, in R5. We've got the different red zones. We have to the north of us, that's the homeless task force. But across the highway there, we have recreational zoning. And it's an 8-lot subdivision. It's a residential 8-lot subdivision, fairly new over there. So they are located in the resort comp plan, but they are the recreational zone on top of that. And then further north, we have the Kootenai, or the Kalispell tribe of Indians up there. You have, between the two reds on the west side of the highway, you have Jeb and Margaret's, and it is R5, yet it's still overlaid by the comp plan that is resort. And threw in a rural service center there for the other storage units. Next step is the comp plan overlay from the GIS map also. So if we look at that, we've got the resort comp plan, and I put an asterisk where all those things I've already described are there. But if you take a look up there toward the end on the northeast there, we have the Trestle Creek Estates. Residential type uses, sub 1 acre parcels in the R5 zone, overlaid by the resort comp plan. As you run back down towards our project site, you'll see several other small parcels in there along Creekside Lane. Same neighborhood where we're at. And you have some little tiny parcels in there, 1/3 acre or so, maybe smaller, maybe 1/4, maybe even 2/10 of an acre. Same neighborhood. They are in the resort comp plan, and the ones to the south are in the R5, or the rural residential. And then you've got 2 of them in there that the line actually crosses right between. It actually puts a comp plan to the north of their parcel, or the north half of their parcel, into the resort, and the south half into the rural residential. So we're splitting them by comp plan designation. So what I'm looking at is I do not see a difference between the 2/10 of an acre up to 1/2 acre, 1/3 acre that is adjacent to our project, and the one just a little further up the road from our project being the same style of usage, being in a different comp plan. And they do all fall in the R5. So we've got a mix up of designations here. Here's an aerial photo. Well, it's off of this is off of Google Earth, only printed one. It's just an overlook. And we can see the activities. We are located, of course, right across here, Selkirk Repair Service. We have the Ponderay RV Park to the south adjoining us. We have Trestle Creek RV Park. A lot of it's under the trees here. Creek runs up through here.
Mr. Proval,
Yes.
if you wouldn't mind putting that in front of Commissioner Corn, I have it up on my computer, so it might be a little more helpful.
Thank you. So it gives a nice close-up of what's going on out there. All recreational uses, as you can see from the air. It's a busy place. As far as belonging to the Trestle Creek Sewer District, it does not exist. It's on the map. I got a hold of the person in charge. It's not available. It needs to be removed from the map. We don't need them. They don't serve any way, they don't serve anybody. Looking for the letter that she wrote to me. Oh, well, I can get that to you. But as I said, the Bonner County Code allows us to have or be considered described for the I seem to be talking over the top of myself here. Oh, there's the letter. Add that in. But again, Bonner County 12821 definitions, urban services, that publicly or privately owned, maintained water supply and distribution systems. That's the well, that's getting the well to your house or to your, where you need to go with it. Sewage collection, we have an existing.
He hasn't submitted this into our file, so we'll need to keep it.
An existing PhD drain field and septic tank system. And it says here that we can do that unless let me start over here, not to include individual septic tanks and drain fields systems or community septic tanks and drain fields unless subject to an approved sewer management agreement. So we can make that happen. It's easy enough. Make the agreement. So now we have our urban services in place.
Can I ask you to clarify your sentence because that was confusing? Can you restate what you're saying? What agreement are you saying you can effectuate?
Okay, so I'm going to read the urban services. One of our denial things was we didn't have urban services, and we talked about Trestle Creek Sewer District, which it doesn't exist. So I'm going to go to what is urban services within the code here, 12821 definition. It says publicly or privately maintained water supply and distribution systems, sewage collection, treatment, and disposal systems, not to include individual septic tanks and drain field systems or community septic tanks and drain field systems unless subject to an approved sewer management agreement. So we can have urban services subject to an urban agreement, sewer management agreement.
So do you have that agreement in place?
This allows, we don't have our zone change or a comp plan change yet. It's available to us. We can create that when the time comes to actually make that happen.
So to be defined as an urban service, there
Correct.
must be an agreement in place for an individual system to qualify.
You want us to build the structure before we get the,
I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm reading the code definition.
unless subject to and approved, so we can make that subject approval anytime. The gentleman has the ability to do that.
Just clarifying the definition per the code.
Right? But that is something that is available to us, and we can do that. That'd be like going, if there was a public system out there, and we'd have to go and pay for the thing before we were able to actually get approved. It can be,
I don't see where it says a future state. It says subject to, which would mean it would be something, subject to and approved, which would mean it would be an existing agreement.
we have an existing.
Let me see that page.
Okay, so we have an existing well, and we have an existing sewer, PhD sewer, and there, so there it is. You write an agreement, and it's a done deal.
It's, okay, I'm just clarifying whether or not there's an existing agreement in place.
So I think what he's saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, the property and the property owner already has a well, which is considered urban services, walk
Only
to
if-
water, and it
It's only
has a
in-
PhD sign off for the septic system,
Correct.
which it states that would suffice for urban services having a septic system. Is
If
that-
there was an approved sewer management agreement, that's what the code
So
says.
So
Well, it's
what-
with the property owner has it, they own it.
No, they don't have an agreement in place for
So
it.
what Commissioner Donkey was doing was asking the gentleman to complete the rest of the sentence that's in the code. And so right now, he's just doing his presentation to us, but he was asking him to, does he have the second part of that sentence? And his answer is, shortly put, no, but he can obtain it. And so we can
Discuss it later.
discuss it
Okay.
later. So the answer is no, so please continue.
I would also like to add to that, if the Trestle Creek outfit was there and you guys, all you wanted was a will serve, we're not hooked up and we don't have an agreement yet, but they will serve us because they have us in their thing. So it's the same idea, even though we don't have the document signed and delivered, can be created in an instant. It's not one of those stoppable deals that, you can't jump through. We've got the comp plan, we've got the zone change to go through, and we also have a conditional use permit before we even begin putting a stick up.
Could you clarify your prior statement, please? I thought you handed us a letter that said that sewer district was never formed and doesn't exist, but you said you can just get a will serve letter and it's a done deal. I'm not understanding the conflict of those statements.
Hi, John Finney. I'm the attorney for the applicant, and I'll try to push us forward a little bit. So we're here going to present right now a one-page piece of paper signed by the Ponderay RV Park. Mr. Skinner is the manager and owner of that property, that the RV Park agrees to provide sewer management for the community tanks and drain field systems for the existing infrastructure for the subject parcel AM 004-24 property. So we'll submit that to the record. I don't know if you want to give it an exhibit number. I think the letters were the sewer district.
So that's our will serve letter.
Yes. And to clarify, the sewer district, there's a created sewer district. They don't have a capacity at this point. So they don't issue will serve letters because they don't have a capacity. There is a sewer district, but that's a little bit of a red herring in that that's one method to meet the urban services definition. We would submit that the letter just provided would meet it.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. I'll turn that over to Dan.
Before we proceed, I would like to get clarification from planning staff if they can answer the question on the fly regarding how do we define an approved sewer management agreement? Is the piece of paper we were just handed, would that meet the definition of an approved sewer management agreement?
That's not a sewer management agreement.
I can pull up.
And I hope you guys understand, I'm trying to deal with facts. I want to have the facts clear.
So while they're pulling up what a sewer management agreement is, can you please continue with your presentation?
I believe that's all I have for now. If
Okay.
you have any questions, I can answer them. I believe John might want to get up and have it say.
Thank you. So once again, John Finney, attorney for the applicant. I'm available whenever we get to, but I don't believe Bonner County Code has a definition of approved sewer management agreement. In the past, in my experience, it's a community place that provides for sewer disposal and that there is some form of management. The RV park is a regulated sewer district, regulated sewer system because of the RP park nature. And so it is regulated by Panhandle Health, DEQ, and all those things, and can provide those services as well for either the on-site existing drain field or it's within its system, depending on the ultimate build-out of the project. I think the concept that Mr. Provolt was trying to address is kind of the chicken and the egg that we see on all of these zoning and comp plan is, does it have to meet it currently, or is it a consideration that it can be met in the future? That was the distinction he was trying to make. We've attempted to address that distinction by providing the one-page document. I would submit that also can be further dealt with at the time of any building location permits as one of the checkoffs, and that's typically when that actual final determination would be made rather than a comp plan. We'd like to draw the focus back to the comp plan, the comp plan change. Various maps, various diagrams show that this is an area that really does fit in resort community. That's the focus of the comp plan. I don't want to say it's 30,000 feet, but it's not the minutia. It is a more higher elevation, and then you have the zoning, which is the land use designations, which would be the next file, and then you have other things that fall down to the building permit. So we would ask that the commission reconsider its prior denial of the comp plan. And I don't know if there's any questions or items to address on the approved.
Are you done with
sewer
your
management.
presentation? Because then we'll ask questions.
Yes.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for the applicant at this time?
I don't have any further questions.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so we are into public testimony at this time. We will start with those who are in favor of the project. In the room, in favor of the project. Sir? You want to give a comment, sir? Please state your name and county of residence.
My name is Ray Millard. I'm the owner of Trestle Creek RV Park. My wife and I purchased that in 1990. On our first tax bill, I noticed that entry for Trestle Creek Sewer District. I contacted the county and said, what is this? It had no attachment to it in terms of what the levy would be. And they were very vague about what it was. They realized it wasn't functioning. And so I did contact someone who had some information on it. I couldn't even tell you what that person's name was now, but it was 1990. I think what happened is there must have been some sort of a movement in the Trestle Creek area to be identified as a separate area from Hope. And so that may have been a request by commissioners at that time. I don't know where this whole idea came from, but none of us are connected to any kind of a sewer system, and many people have gone to great expense to try to meet the requirements for the area from a sewage standpoint. So I think any attempt to resurrect that again would meet with a lot of opposition, myself included. However, I would say I'm in favor of cleaning up the mess out there as far as the zoning is concerned. Our property is 1.91 acres. Dan has been involved with surveying that property a couple of times. And I think the whole area was kind of haphazardly put together. And now it's going to be difficult to try to sort through it. But I guess the question I have is, if we have surrounding areas that are designated as recreation, why isn't mine? So I would be in favor of the zoning change.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else in the room in favor of the file? Anybody online?
Nobody with their hand up.
Thank you. All right. Anybody neutral in the room? Anybody neutral online? Anybody in opposition? All right, so you guys line up. There's only, all three of you will line up, I guess. Yeah. You can take the microphone and pass it through if you all don't want to get up. And state your name, sir.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Luke McMillan. I'm a resident in Bonner County. My family owns the property on 46 Creekside Lane. And as we've discussed in previous meetings, we believe that based on some of the language in the staff report pertaining to the goals of property rights and comprehensive plan analysis, that it would infringe on our property rights and actually devalue our property. Specifically, if the only entry and access point to whatever they decide to do with this, based on the conditional use permit, is wrapping around basically 3 points of our property. So that's a big concern for us. And I think, Commissioner Williams, you said it before in the previous hearing at your initial denial, that, it's all well and good to make an argument for economic growth in a certain area, but sometimes it's okay to look out for the little guy and protect individual property rights. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Hi, my name is Laura Lee McMillan, Bonner County. Same property owner, family, legacy property. There's one thing that was presented about, looking at this area, this neighborhood, and it's being used for commercial purposes. currently live in that house, and the business, the mechanical repair business, he has moved his business to in town. He may, like, his wife runs the office maybe in their house with their child, and they live there. It is a residence that they live in. And there are also on the applicant's rental properties, families residing as residents there with children and families. So it's a really interesting for me to hear that as a family, you know, like legacy descendants and all of that as families. Its property has been in our family for 50 plus years. So it is a residence, it is residential to us, and the people that live on the road are our community and our people. And so having our community and our property kind of looked at as like, oh, this isn't being used for that. It isn't being used for that. There are families living there. We are a family living there, and it directly impacts us as a family because it will be infringing on our land, on our home, on, you know, where I lay out in the sun with my cats, you know, like it is a home, it is a residence. It's not just this like commercial area that recreational, that it seems so light to say that when like we are a little guy, we are a family kind of sitting all by ourselves right now. So it is hard as a family to want to really fight for that it's real, you know, it is personal. It's not just business, it's personal for us. So I guess thank you for recognizing that before, and just ask that you recognize that again. Thank you for your time.
Scott Abbey. I'm a resident of Creekside Lane, so Bonner County. I have stated in the past I'm not opposed to them putting their business on that piece of land. What I'm opposed to is them using Creekside Lane as access to their storage or their business and storage units. There are other ways to access that. They actually say, I believe they own the trailer park south of us. They could find an access that way into the property. And again, I think the main reason why I'm opposed to this Creekside, if we have an emergency on the street and they have a breakdown of a vehicle going into their property, we only have one way in, one way out on that street, and that is 200 Creekside Lane right there. It could disrupt emergency services if needed. Not to say that it would, and hopefully it never would, but it is a possibility, and that's what I look at, and that's my main opposition. The opposition of the applicant because of the undersized lots as compared to what they are now, we need to take a look at when these things were done. I believe we have a lot of homes that are probably built in the 60s and 70s, maybe when these specs were not in, you know, where they are now. I live at the far other end of it. I live almost at the dead end of the dead end. That's what I usually tell people when they come to see me. So I'm not in this little area here. So, you know, the parcel size, I think, is really a weak argument. The one thing I will say, though, is they claim to own the creekside between Creekwood and Creekside in that area there. We have to maintain our own road, and in front of our property, most of us do. But that right now, where you turn on the 200 on the Creekside, if these folks own it, they're not doing a darn thing to maintain it. And I've never seen any of these folks out there on the road doing repairs, filling in potholes. And right now, it's terrible. I've got to dodge them or straddle them. I had to teach my wife the other day that you can straddle some and you got to dodge others. You know, otherwise, you're going to sink into it and really probably cause some suspension damage. So anyway, these are just the points I want to make, but my original one still stands. Emergency vehicles have to be able to get in, whether they have clients with broken down vehicles or not. So I'm done. Thank you.
Sir. Any other comments in opposition of the file? All right. In opposition of the file? You just were in support. Are you changing your position?
I just wanted to make an statement. The egress and ingress of that property.
Sir, I'll let you make another statement, but you have to come to the microphone. But it's in if you want to switch to opposition, that's where we are, is on opposition of the file, because this is a hearing. So are you opposed?
I can't make the statement then.
Okay, all right. All right, into rebuttal of the applicant.
Thank you, John Finney, once again. So to address Mr. and Mrs. McMillan's concerns, and if we could have that diagram that was just up, maybe put back up. The road right-of-way area is part of the parcel. It is the applicant's intention to use its direct access to Highway 200, but that is the full parcel. I suspect that at a building permit timeframe, the access will be finalized, will be identified, and if Creekside was the only viable access or such, that then there would be some participation of improvement of the roads to address Mr. Abbey's concern as to maintenance and pothole filling, but it is the applicant's desire to use the highway right-of-way frontage, just as the RV park, Ponderay RV Park does. And I would note that the road actually does go down to the RV park. That traffic could potentially use that same access route, but it doesn't. So we already have that circumstance of, this might happen, but it's not. I don't know where Mr. Abbey's parcel is compared to the line that Mr. Provolt laid out for currently zoned recreation versus, or currently comp planned recreation versus currently comp planned rural. But as to the McMillans, their parcel is actually a non-conforming parcel. They would actually be served, in my opinion, in the long run to be in resort community, because then they ought to be conforming parcel for the residential use. The uses are to be of a mixed nature in those zones, and we think that both their parcel, the other residential parcels, the other RV parcels and such, all fit in that mixed use zone and comp plan as set forth for Bonner County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, at this time, we will move into board deliberation. Commissioner Domke.
All right, so I'd like to walk through the 4 points that were presented in the letter of reconsideration, since that's the purpose of this hearing. The first one was the lack of services to the property. And so I'm reminding myself in this discussion that this is a proposed comprehensive plan map designation change. So it's a high-level view, not a detailed level view, as is the intent of the comp plan. And so with that in mind, looking at the information provided, the rural residential comp plan land use designation, the two distinguishing factors when it comes to services are that rural residential says that it's appropriate in areas where urban services are not available, where the resort community says where urban services are provided. And so as I'm looking at the code definition of urban services, I do not, because it talks about not being in a district, but having actual publicly or privately maintained water supply, distribution system, or sewage collection. So I don't believe we have those. However, the definition does include electric power and hard surface roads constructed to standards set forth in Title II of this code. So based on the staff report, the information provided, we do have a Vista Power, and we do have the ITT highway. And so when I look at the comprehensive plan use designation for resort community, it says where urban services, I say the word services plural, are provided. So when I look at the definition of urban services, I do see that at least two urban services by definition, being the electric power and the hard surfaced roads, in my opinion, would meet that definition. In the second point, the property being contiguous with residential properties, as I go through, again, the rural residential versus the resort community designations, the rural residential we don't have anything specific for me to point to, but when I look at the resort community, it talks about urban-like densities, and I do agree that the size of the adjacent parcels are much more like urban-like densities than the 5 and 10 acres that would be considered for rural residential per the comp plan. Then looking at point 3, access to the property has not been improved by ITD. I agree that they have multiple means of access based on frontage on the paved highway, and that would be part of the designation, in my opinion, of the urban services component. And so I do agree with the applicant that having a permit for the approach is not something that's required in consideration of a land use designation. And then the final point for going back to the parcel size of 1.8, again, when we look at resort community supposed to be considered in an urban-like density, I do believe that the 1.8 acre parcel and the majority of the adjacent parcels are more fitting with an urban-like density as compared to a 5 acre density. So as I'm walking through the checklist in my head of the land use designation of rural residential criteria versus resort community criteria, I do believe, per the items just discussed, that it does fit more consistently with the resort community designation.
Commissioner Corn?
I'd have to agree with Commissioner Donkey. And I think I think the whole comp plan in that area should be revisited to bring the non-conforming lots up to conforming lots. We have to remember what we're addressing right now is strictly an amendment to the comp plan. That's all we're addressing. So I'd agree with that. We're not looking at anything else at this time. All these other small lots out there don't have urban services. I don't think that really comes into play in this situation. So I would agree supporting the comp plan amendment on this project.
Well, I have a dissenting opinion on the definition of rural residential, and I'll kind of on the same thing of looking at the map of where this property is situated versus what is around this property, and it's residential areas that are around this property. And so part of the requirement for rural residential is that they are hazard areas and critical wildlife habitats where lower densities reduce potential impacts to resources and exposure to loss of property or lives. Small-scale agricultural uses and residential development are permitted. When you look at what what the applicant submitted, the change from rural residential increases hazards to the adjoining houses. And so when you go through the comprehensive plan and you look at what we are obligated to take a look at, it is, with respect to property rights, we have to take consideration to protect property rights and enhance property values through conscious land use planning that complies with state law relevant to all county land actions. But it also, when we're talking about economic development, it requires us to take a look at the people that are surrounding it. Yes, there are other recreational type areas, but where this area is, it's in the middle of the residential use. And so if we change this to recreational as the map, then we have increased hazards, and it's reasonable for these people to make the argument that valuation of their property goes down. The other thing is there's a significant number of comments on this file of people that actually were opposed to the development. And if the board can see that there's smaller acreage there and that there needs to be an adjustment. I don't think that you make an adjustment that benefits one parcel owner but has the negative impact to the rest of the community that's there. There was a lot in this presentation that said what will happen in the future, but it doesn't actually create the plan. But once you make that comprehensive map plan change, then you open up for the hazards that exist with recreational in the residential side. There's a lot of talk about it's not 5 acres. There's not much at all that's 5 acres in that area, but it is residential in that area. And so we would be putting residential inside. When you look at the reconsideration letter from the applicant, under arbitrary and capricious and or abuse of discretion, the argument put forth is only that the planning commission supported the change, but there was no comment about how did the Board of Commissioners create an arbitrary or capricious decision in that regard. The access issue is, the comment that's being made is it will get addressed once we get the change made, but that doesn't address the issues that we have to address for the people that are impacted by the decision. And the idea of Rule 5 requires minimum of 5 acres per parcel. It's an area that we are recognizing issues with. But to change this in the center of a residential area to recreational, I think that you do exactly what it tells us not to do, which it doesn't have consideration for the people that live there. Because in the middle of the residential, you would be putting a recreational business. And when you look at the business type that recreational wants, it's actually home-based, smaller scale. That's a larger scale type of business in the middle. So for those reasons, I don't support the change of the comprehensive plan for that area. The map, it looks like, which I know everybody hates saying, like an odd lot, but it's in the middle of residential area. You would be creating increased density. So those are my comments on the comprehensive map change.
Commissioner Roll, I certainly understand your concerns. For me, I have to go down through and be able to check the boxes. And I don't see where I can check enough boxes on rural residential to say that it complies with that land use designation. I think the reality is this has been developed into a mixed use area. And I could argue what other designations might make more sense, but the only thing I can actually do right now is to choose between rural residential and the proposed resort community. When I compare those two, I do believe that the resort community is the one that I can show the most adherence or alignment with. So appreciate those concerns that you raised, but I feel obligated that when I do a comparison of the requirements for the two designations, I can check more boxes on the resort community side.
I can't get to that level. And when I look at property rights, when we're looking at changing once people buy their property with their comprehensive plan and their zone, the comprehensive plan analysis under property rights requires us to look at the impacts to other properties should be taken into account when considering land use proposals, policies, and codes. And so when I look at putting in a storage unit in a residential area, the impact to all of those surrounding properties has to be considered. And it is reasonable to say, are we negatively impacting the value of residential property by putting, that's not a small scale use in the middle of residential. And when I continue to go down, when I'm looking at kind of that idea of the change, part of what it also wants us to do is, let me go to the next topic here. It's also under property rights is to maintain current projected county population estimates and utilize the information to make land use decisions. We consistently in Bonner County say we need opportunities for housing. We're removing that when we make this change. When you continue down, we have kind of the constant letter from the school that says that there's increased needs with growth. I just don't see putting recreational in the middle. I can't check more boxes, and I have to consider the impact to the other properties surrounding the one property. And I guess I would ask how, when you're looking at that objective, how do we get past the impact to everyone else for a change to recreational there with what was brought forward on it? There was a letter where someone made a comment. I want to say what it was. They have issues on the road specifically, and they specifically address the issues and the hazards related to the roads in the residential area. We would be increasing the traffic and flow on the residential side of Creekside Lane and Creekwood Lane. Those residents actually, there's a significant number of opposition to it, but.
Understood. Sorry, did you want me to respond to that?
I was going to say the other roads that the people had an issue with. But I'll just leave it at, there's concerns of changing it for one property when the rest of it's residential for me.
Yeah, I acknowledge that, and from a land use designation perspective, we don't know how they're going to access the property in the future, so I'm needing to keep that in mind. And then I do go back to the challenge that I don't believe this was ever appropriately zoned when it was as far as rural residential because of the lot sizes. And so I'm struggling to make an argument that we should preserve a designation that I can't meet the criteria of. And when I'm looking, the reality is the density is really wanting to be a suburban zone. And so that, and I don't, I'll have to verify, but asking the question, which I understand about residential, I'm not aware of any limitations that resort community would have from creating residential development. Trying to find that.
I actually have a question on this. If the board says that this entire area is zoned in a way that's not able to be supported, is it reasonable then to make one change of the comprehensive map versus taking the time, because you don't have to make a decision here. If people aren't comfortable with the map on the area as a whole, which even people in support of this file said that it's a little bit wonky, for lack of a better word, is it then incumbent upon the board to not make a decision to change one, but to actually take a better view at the entire area to ensure that we don't negatively impact those who are residential, because nobody looks to say, I want to live next to a storage. It's not on the list of drop-down menus of what you want. And that doesn't mean storage units don't have a place in the community. It's where do you put it in the community? So if the board, which both of you have commented that you don't like the way it's put together at all, then is it right then to not make an individual decision on one comp plan change, but to look at the area to find the appropriate designations for everybody's parcel to ensure that you don't negatively impact those people that didn't come forward? Because the people that are coming forward are people that are residential who are saying, look, we live here as a residence. This person wants to make it recreation. If you can accept that you don't like the look of it as a whole, do we owe it to not make a decision at this time and to go back and take a look at the area so that we don't negatively impact others?
I see your point to that, and I do think that we need to look at this and address it, but this is in front of us today. This has been in front of us a couple of times, unfortunately, and I'm sure they're wanting an answer. I think we owe them an answer. Anytime the public comes to us wanting to amend something or zone changes, I don't think we should put them off just because we have a deficiency in our comp plan map. I don't think that's proper. Not saying that this doesn't have to get addressed down the road, but I do think we owe it to them today, an answer. And I'm looking at this map and it's incorrect, in my opinion. It does need to get changed. It's not conforming. Everything in there doesn't conform to rural 5. It's surrounded by recreational use. I mean, 3 sides of it has RV parks. I don't know, it'd be hard to argue that an RV park is not recreational and or commercial. And then you have the actual zoning of 180 degrees of that property is on our comp plan as recreational. I don't know why. I can't answer why it didn't continue down that 200 corridor, which seems to make sense that it should. But, and the other issues that you bring up, such as roads and driveways and stuff, I don't think that comes into play at this point in time when we're just asking for, they're asking for a comp plan map amendment.
I think that it's incumbent upon us to look at the whole scale of it. And I don't believe that one person, a decision to say, let's look at the map is a decision. And a decision, how do you judge that a person gets a decision to change the map while the other people who are saying, I live here as a resident, who are coming forward with an issue, don't get a decision that says, wait, you could potentially negatively impact me. And there is a difference between an RV park and a storage because it is increasing, in a way, residential for some people that come over and do stuff. I don't know how the length of the stays, but a decision, if we say the map needs to be fixed, but I want to make a decision today because they came forward, how is it that the people that also came forward saying, wait, I live here, how do they not equally deserve us to thoughtfully consider a decision that will potentially negatively impact their property rights when in this meeting the board has accepted that the map and the way this is zoned requires some repair? And so if you make a decision to move forward, are you increasing the problem for the people that are, in a sense, left in that particular area because we made a decision just because a file came? Or do you take the file as an opportunity to say, this is an issue that we need to address to ensure we don't trample property rights for some while addressing a file before us? A decision to not make a decision is a decision. A decision to make a thoughtful decision is a decision. And the county is obligated to not make a decision for one at the expense of others. And I have heard everybody's conversation, and there is some element of agreement that something about this neighborhood needs to be fixed. So if we don't fix it, but we make a change, are we negatively impacting the people that are residents there? And I don't believe the applicant wants to negatively impact the residents. There's a lot of conversation that says, we think it would be an okay if we address some of these concerns. Part of what we're doing here is saying, let me change the map, and we can't ignore that. The next thing we're going to hear is, let me change the zone. And so we have to, as a county, from my perspective, look at the bigger picture of this project and not just, it's just you fit here, because there are elements that we agree, because the same people that are saying, you're going to negatively impact me, they can come forward and say, look, the board already said the map is messed up, it needs to be fixed, but because he got here first with a file, they gave him a change that they kind of could support, but maybe not fully support. Why not do it right the first time? And I think that this neighborhood owes that, because everybody agrees, no one knows how this was put together. It wasn't put together in line with what we want to see in a neighborhood that we can depend on for the economic growth and housing stability that we're looking for in the markets. So there is no obligation for us to make a decision that says we're going to move forward with a map change at this time. We don't have to make a map change. We can say, we need to address this and bring this back. That's my position, because if I lived in an area, it's not the same. You're saying this stuff is recreational, but this stuff is residential. And in the middle of residential, you will be putting recreation, and that does impact the people around that area. And so how do we reasonably address the property rights of the people around the area, because historically the county didn't do a good job of the map? My position is, accept that we didn't do a good job as a county with the map for however many years, and let's fix the map for all of the property owners, not just one, because at a minimum, regardless of what the request is, only one person gets the benefit of a comprehensive map change if we make a decision now with people who live residential around this, who are going to have the impacts of increased traffic, increased infrastructure. It's a lot that happens with the map change. And we would be making a map change to potentially say, we need to make a different map change later when someone else comes forward, because we didn't fix the problem, we just surface address something. That's how I would like to make a decision. But I understand your guys' position, but that's my compelling argument to say, you guys both agree this map needs to be fixed. And my argument is, then let's fix it and not make a change that doesn't address everybody that's impacted, because I think that's a disservice to the other people that have property rights when you read and accept that there's deficiencies, however they came to be.
And I think we need to remind ourselves why we're here today. We're here today because a property owner would like to amend his parcel. So we can kind of go down the rabbit hole of, well, we should wait and do the whole map right. But why are we here today? We're here today because we have a citizen that's petitioning, amending our comp plan, and we should give him an answer. I don't like the fact that we don't have to give him an answer. I don't like that answer. I think we owe it to citizens to answer them when they come before us for whatever reason. And I think that looking at this map, by default, all those properties, none of them match the comp plan as it stands.
But that's my point, because how do we answer the other ones?
I understand your point, and we should fix it. But I think we owe it to the property owner and the citizen that has gone through the work to apply for this. I think we owe him an answer.
Well, and I understand, an answer is, let me fix the map, that's an answer. And so I would ask you this then, what do you owe to the property owners that came forward to tell you a decision by one property owner is going to negatively impact my property? Because whenever we make a decision to make a change, it impacts other people. And part of the obligation of the Board of Commissioners when it gets to our level is to thoughtfully consider the impact of any change that happens. If as a commissioner you say, this map needs to be fixed, but because you asked before we fix it, I'm going to give it to you, I can't check off that I reasonably considered the impacts of others, and arguably, what we're actually conceding here in your argument is we should just give him his decision because he came forward and worry about the consequence later. And that is something that can be irreparable to other property owners because you've changed in a way that impacts this. It's not just the size, it's what is the actual use that's occurring in that particular area. And with the exception of the property that wants to change the comprehensive map, the use of this area isn't recreation, it is actually residential. And so when you put recreation in the middle of residential, I have to argue very strongly to thoughtfully consider the impact, because you've got one person's property that wraps around this piece of property. I can't accept that we need to fix something, but because we don't have time today to fix it, let's just piecemeal it. because what happens if we change it? And then when we look at it, we say, oh, it shouldn't have been that. Then what do? We have an odd lot in the middle, and we have, again, created the problem that already exists in this neighborhood because we didn't do it reasonably. The counties have not taken the opportunity to take a step back and slow down some of the changes to do it thoughtfully. And my argument is it may very well end up that the majority of this board says some part of this area that's deemed rural residential should be recreational. But we haven't done the work to make that determination, and we have heard from both parties that lean towards making the decision today that you agree that that area needs to be addressed. And I can't say change that comprehensive map for one file when multiple other people are saying it's going to negatively impact me, and we are actually saying probably, but he asked first.
So I'm gonna, I guess, clarify some of the public comment. Some of the public comment was about the road issues, and we don't know what the road issues are. We're speculating, and I hate to make decisions on speculation. Some of the comments were that my land values might go down. I think we're speculating again. I think in a recreational zone, and I know that in a commercial zone, property actually goes up in value. And there was another testimony that said that his property should be zoned recreational, that it would help him. So that was the public testimony today that I heard. We don't know that if this is allowed to happen, we don't know if they're going to use that private road for ingress and egress. We don't know if they're going to be allowed to have Highway 200 access. Those are things that we don't know. And I guess we would be speculating, and I don't like to speculate when I'm making these decisions. All we're doing right now is deciding whether or not the board thinks that it should be changed on the comp plan from rural 5, which it doesn't meet, to something that it does meet, which would be a recreation. I think Commissioner Donkey said it might fit a couple other mixed use or some other designations, but what's in front of us today is the change from rural 5 to recreation. So I think we could deliberate all day long. I don't think you're going to change my opinion. I highly doubt I'm going to change your opinion.
Well, I'm going to say that in your using your argument of speculation, you're actually using speculation to make the decision that you're making. And the comments on this file exist greater than the people that are in this room. There's a number of comments attached to this file regarding the roads, the impacts, and their dissent of making such a decision. If you can, in the same breath, say Commissioner Donkey also said there's other uses that might fit. If we have not thoughtfully considered the uses of this area before you make a map change, that's what has happened in Bonner County over and over again. We make little change here, 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 and then this is the result. This is the result of the decision that would be made today is we're saying there's something wrong, but we're not going to fully fix it. It doesn't fully fit. I don't like it, but because you asked, that's essentially the argument that's being made. And there is concrete evidence about property rights adjacent to when you're changing the use. That mixed use in the neighborhood. That's what nobody has addressed. When I keep holding this up because when you look at the recreation, the color shows you where we have property that looks like that. In this housing development area, you're saying put a different use. That has an impact to property rights. It does. Because what it says to the people around it is start selling yourself off to make it more of a commercial type recreational use because it's no longer family friendly home house building. That's not what it's going to be. And so that impacts however many pieces of property around this. I owe thoughtful consideration, not just piecemeal consideration of the use, because if I owned property around this and it was changed, that's what I would end up doing because the properties are small. The size of the properties being small also says it's too close. I can see that. I can hear the noise. I can see the lights that are still on for the storage facility. That's what is going to happen there. And so that's where I don't think that I think my plea is, since you both say that the map itself does not get fixed with this change, but there's a problem in that it could reasonably be different uses that have not been considered, you don't have to make a decision to make a change today. We can thoughtfully consider this, and you can take this file as addressing a problem in a neighborhood that hasn't been addressed to ensure it lines up with the comprehensive map that we are moving forward with. That's the last thing I would say. And I would ask you to read the other comments, because there are people that wrote very lengthy comments about the roads, the conditions, and property impacts to them.
So I'll chime in now. I agree that we always have to look at the balance of property rights whenever we look at these decisions. It's not just the applicant, it's the adjacent landowners that are impacted. Everyone's impacted in the area. I agree that's important. And I'll admit, this is a really difficult file for me because of the fact that I think the current designation is so incorrect. And so I would like to get legal's weigh in to understand if in fact the board has an option to take a step back and look at the larger aspect of this decision and how it impacts multiple properties in this area, given the concerns that we've raised. So Bill, if you're tracking, I'd like your opinion, please.
Yeah, so I guess, could you just restate the question so I have a better handle on it?
Does the board have the option to not make a decision on this request, this application, which is being reconsidered, in order to take a look at multiple parcels and how this map designation has been handled, because we believe we've encountered a larger issue to be addressed?
I think you need to vote yes or no on this file. To say nothing is to uphold the original denial, because we are in a reconsideration context. Now, any change to the comprehensive plan is deemed legislative, and so you could go back if you feel so inclined and take a look at the community, at that area as a whole, and see if it does deserve to see more broad-based changes. But no, I think you have to vote yes or no on this file. Just to say nothing is the equivalent of a denial.
Can you clarify though, Bill, you can say nothing and we can address the comprehensive map as a whole, and then this file, this property owner can revisit after review of the comp if we make that change?
Well, but if you do nothing, it is a denial at this point, because they've asked for the change to this particular property now. So correct. We have to answer that question. If you say, no, we don't want to make this legislative change today, you can say that and then take up the broader issue in a separate proceeding.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the board could vote no on this file right now and address the comprehensive plan in a broader view, and then the applicant can come back after you reviewed it, but you would still make a decision on the change today.
Yeah, yes, you do have the right to return and revisit the broader issue, but that doesn't absolve you from making a yes or no vote on this issue now.
Correct. And I would ask one of you to consider that if that is an option and there's enough concern on the board before a change is made, that provides a greater application of ensuring property rights of all of the people out there by saying it was brought forward with a request. We need to address the comprehensive file or the comprehensive map and then come back to see what it would look like, versus just moving forward and not addressing the problem. Because I think equally everyone has some comment that says, even if we made this change, that map is not right for that area. And so it's an opportunity for Bonner County take a step back and fix a problem that was brought forward with this application. My request is that you deny the change, that we address the map, and then the applicant can come back at a later time after we've addressed the map for all. And I will argue that I believe that the deliberation of this board, recognizing that there is a potential probable negative outcome to others if we don't address the map, requires us to take a step back and do the work to fix that map. So I think we beat it to the ground. So at this time, I will call for a motion.
I'll make the motion to move reverse the board's original decision and approve this project, file number AM0004-24, requesting a comp plan amendment from rural residential to resort community on approximately 1.81 acres, generally located in sections 21, Township 57 North, Range 1 East, Boise Meridian, Bonner County, Idaho, finding that it is in accord with the general and specific objectives of the Bonner County Comp Plan and Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law. Conclusion 1, the proposal is in accord with elements of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Conclusion number 2, this proposal was reviewed for compliance with Title 12 Bonner County Revised Code and is found to be in compliance. Conclusion 3, the proposal is in accord with the purpose of the Resort Community Comprehensive Land Use Designation. This decision is based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law as set forth in the staff report or as amended during this hearing, and direct planning staff to draft written findings and conclusions to reflect this motion, have the chairman sign and transmit to all interested parties. This action does not result in the taking of private property. I move to approve a resolution number to be determined, amending the Bonner County projected land use map from rural residential to resort community for the parcels outlined in this file, AM0004-24, totaling an approximate 1.81 acres.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I will second for discussion.
All right, deliberation by the board.
I am concerned about the balance of property rights and the larger issue at hand, and the need to take into account the impacts on adjacent property owners. And I don't have confidence that we have a clear-cut understanding of what those impacts would be based on what I believe we've discovered as a problem within the land use designation of this area. So I'm not comfortable moving forward with that decision today.
I concur. I think I've exhausted my word count on the topic. So, Commissioner Korn?
I am out of words.
All right. Okay, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams?
No?
Commissioner Korn?
Yes.
Commissioner Donovan?
No.
All right, it is,
We got one more.
I know. I was going to ask, do we want to go to the another day, put this on for tomorrow, or go on to the next file? What is the request? We are almost at 5 o'clock.
So this is a zone change request related to the previous file. If you want to forego staff's presentation, we don't have anything new to present that wasn't presented at the last hearing, which I believe all the commissioners were here. Go right to the applicant's presentation and then public comment.
Okay.
It might save some time, otherwise we can represent the file.
We can save time by not representing the file, but I need to go and grab my computer charger because I can't see my notes. So I'll go and grab that really quick.
Oh, go.
It's the zone change request that would follow the map amendment. Please do.
And this letter.
That one in particular needs to go into the.
That is the only copy of that. Okay. Oh, thank you. So can I pause you? I have to pause you. You cannot talk about that because we're in a hearing. So I have to say you can't talk to the board about that. Sorry. You gotta follow the rules.
I'm all for that.
You can do that after the hearing is done. Thank
I
you.
always see run out on the street. So I tell him, Dan,
Don't say that.
Girl, this is not the South. This is not. This is not
Hanging
my-
out on the street corner.
see you at the store in the parking lot. whatever. If you're around and I see you, I'll tell you what.
Okay.
My opinion on it was, it's not actually opinion. It was something that I did for 30 years.
Did Bill-
Retired from.
Okay.
So, I've got some.
All right.
We'll talk to you guys.
Have a good day.
All right.
You too. Bye, thank you.
All right, so we're going to go to our next file, zone change. Oh, sorry. Reconsideration of file ZC 0006-24. We'll call for conflict of interest on the board. Commissioner Williams has no conflicts.
Commissioner Corn has none.
Commissioner Domke has none.
All right, with that, we have read the staff report on this item. We're not going to represent the staff report. We will go, he raised his hand? Oh, okay. So we'll go straight to the applicant on the zone change request.
Dan Provo, project rep. So we are looking at the zone change request that would follow, of course, the comp plan change. I think the same information applies to what we've already gone through. We know where everybody's at. We know the sizes, conditions, places. We're looking at the resort comp plan, and then we're looking at the recreational zoning. Same issues, just a few minutes later. I don't know that there's anything new that I can add to the story.
Okay.
So if you have any questions, I can certainly try to answer them, or council can.
Council has something to say?
Yes, thank you. John Finney, for the record, attorney for the applicant. So I'm going to take this opportunity to suggest how to move forward with the lack of a passed motion today. So that, as of 60 days, results in a denial, or basically a denial of the reconsideration. I do think it'd be appropriate at some point in time, whether it's in this hearing or potentially at a business meeting, directing that letter to be issued, since there should be some form of documenting what happened or didn't happen. And then if the commission is serious about wanting to address this, get that process going at a business meeting that's agendized, because that impacts my client's rights and timing on judicial reviews and appeals and things of that nature. So we would ask if that's the case. I mean, that's going to send a pretty strong message to us as to what my client's next steps need to be considered. As it relates directly to the zone change, it is possible to have a zone not match the comp plan. So it is possible that you could zone it as requested in this application. I don't anticipate that happening, but it is possible. We would ask for that to still occur. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, so at this time, we'll go to public comment. So is there anybody online?
There's one online.
All right, is there anybody that is for the application that wants to give a comment? Any hand? Anyone neutral? Anyone against?
My name is Lorelei McMillan, Bonner County. Similarly, just the opportunity to say thank you for the integrity of, if you're going to change something, do it right. That speaks wonders to younger generations and beyond, looking, potentially people that want to do what you do someday, being an example to our community, and whether it goes our favor or not, just still your desire to do it right. I just have to say thank you for that.
Luke McMillan, Bonner County resident, and I am opposed to rezoning this other than Rural 5, and primarily just for the same reasons you did in the last file, because we believe that in doing so, it would have a negative impact on our property and all the other contiguous residential properties around us. So hopefully you can uphold the same sort of rationale that you did in the past one. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, rebuttal by the applicant.
No rebuttal, thank you.
Okay, all right. We will close and go into deliberation by the board. Any comments on the zone change that's being requested?
So I kind of feel like we're deliberating the same thing similarly, but since this is a zone change, I'm just gonna read the Rural 5 standards, and it's very simple. Developed at or near one dwelling unit per 5 acres. I think we've all seen the last couple of hours that this is not the case. There's one dwelling per quarter acre up to 2.5 acres, I believe, possibly with the exception of 1 or 2 parcels in a larger surrounding area. And the second one for R5 standards says does not meet the criteria for R10. So I don't think any of this area fits the Rural 5 standards. And without causing a lot of discussion.
And likewise, Commissioner, but when I look at the recreation zone designation, it says that has the comprehensive plan designation of transition, neighborhood, commercial, urban growth area, or resort community, which it does not currently, based on our last decision. And then the third bullet, sites are served by adequate sewage disposal service, water supply, and roads and other needed public facilities and services. I believe it was demonstrated at this time that we can't clearly state that we have adequate services. And so, again, I feel like I'm stuck in this neutral position where there's this lack of clear definition about being able to say, yes, this meets all the criteria and is appropriate to make a change. And so that's where I'm at, is I agree that the R5 designation isn't a good fit, but I also can't check all the boxes on the recreation definition.
So to rebut that real quick, you jump down to bullet number 3.
Correct.
Sites are served by adequate sewage disposal service, water supply, and roads, and other needed public facilities and services. I think it was presented to us today that it does have its own water, so that you can check that box. It was presented to us today that they do have PhD sign off on their own sewer septic system, which would check the box on adequate sewage disposal services. Roads and other needed public facilities, it does have a road there. Not saying that that's the one that's going to be used. They may end up using another road, but that's not a conversation for today. We skipped over the second bullet point, which says land is physically suitable to accommodate a broad range of residential and recreational uses. I think we can check that box. And as I just discussed earlier, I believe, my opinion, that we could check box number 3, which gives us 2 out of 3 boxes that it would fit in the recreational zone, whereas in the Rural 5 standards, I can't check any boxes. So weighing that out, not saying it's a perfect fit, but if we had to decide from rural 5 to recreation, I can't check any boxes in rural 5 where I can check 66% of the boxes on the recreation side.
So before you respond to it, Bill's raising his hand, so I have to allow him.
Sorry, guys, this is going to be procedurally unusual, but something just came to my attention, and we may want to reserve it until you conclude this file. But I think for the last file, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a vote to overturn the denial and it was shot down, but then you didn't have a follow-up motion to affirmatively deny the file. So I think it was implied, but I think for neatness sake, and because the applicant is still in the room and we're still at the same hearing, once you conclude this file, I'd like to reopen the previous one just so that there can be an affirmative vote on the record. The reason that's important is because otherwise, with simply a denial, then the underlying decision stands, but I want all of this stuff to be in the record in case there's an appeal, so that it is the justification for your decision is clear from the record, instead of having any weirdness about which decision is actually the one being challenged. The previous denial that was upheld by virtue of default, or this new one with new analysis. So sorry to go back after we've already closed that file, but I think because the applicant's still in the room, we can fix it. I just want to make it clear from the record what the majority of the board decided to do with the last file.
Okay, thank you. So without the comprehensive plan map change, I don't see how we can change the zone. The same argument exists for the zone change. And it isn't just about the sewer, it's about what is the comprehensive map saying. And in that light, it flows similarly to the way the other one. Does Bill have another question? Or whenever he raises his hand, I gotta make sure because he's legal.
No, sorry, I didn't put it back down. My mistake.
You're good. And so we can't say that it can change because it's not on the map. And that's part of the reason that we didn't make the decision on the first file to make that change, because we want to make it look uniform and fix a problem that we've recognized. And in as much as this has been a lot of deliberation, I think the board deserves credit for not rushing through a decision, but thoughtfully considering everybody that's impacted.
I agree with you, Commissioner, that in order to make the zone change, the predominant criteria is the use of the zone as appropriate in areas designated as, and we can't meet that criteria. After that, then it says, with the following conditions, those are the bottom two bullets. So if we can't check the first box, then, that's the prerequisite. So we don't have the ability to continue to consider that, in my opinion, because of the decision on the land use designation.
I'm trying to remember what I read on the PhD paper, but I believe that what it actually said was that they couldn't guarantee anything for a change to recreation, but they noted that there was a domestic well put on the property in 19 something. It actually didn't say it had a pass. It said they had inadequate information for a change, but I can't see why the battery died.
Yeah, I concur. I don't have enough information to check the box to say that services are adequate at this time. But again, I don't even know that we have the ability to assess that, since we can't check the first box, which I believe the code indicates is the prerequisite.
So at this time, we'll entertain a motion regarding the zone change for reconsideration ZC000624.
I move to uphold the board's original decision and deny this project, file ZC 0006-24, requesting a zone change from rural 5 to recreation on approximately 1.81 acres generally located in section 21, township 57 north, range 1 east, Boise Meridian, Bonner County, Idaho, based upon the following conclusions. Conclusion 1, the proposal is not in accord with the elements of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Conclusion 2, the proposal was reviewed for compliance with Title 12 Bonner County Revised Code and is not found to be in compliance. Conclusion 3, the proposal is not in accord with the purpose of the recreation zoning designation provided in Chapter 3, Title 12, Bonner County Revised Code. This motion is based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law as set forth in the staff report or as amended during this hearing. Direct planning staff to draft written findings and conclusions to reflect this motion, having the chair sign and transmit to all interested parties. This action does not result in the taking of private property. The actions that could be taken are file an application with the planning department and meet the standards required by the Bonner County Revised Code, or pursue such remedies as may be applicable at Title 67, Chapter 65, Idaho Code.
I'll second that for deliberation.
All right, comments from the board on the motion on the table? I'll comment that I think I used all my words exhausted, same as before. Commissioner Corn?
I would just like to say one more thing. The majority of the properties in the area, and this is the staff report, are on a quarter acre or larger, up to 4.5 acres. So I would just like to put that on the record that the majority of the surrounding area is between a quarter and about 1.5 acres.
Okay. And I think there's consensus that without a comprehensive map change, that we can't move down to the table to address the other items that would move this file to a zone change. Any comment from you? All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Hart?
No?
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
All right. We will reopen file AM 0004-24 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment. The purpose of reopening the file is for a clear decision from the board regarding the decision that was made on the recommendation of council. At this time, we'll entertain a motion.
Move to uphold the board's previous decision to deny this project, file AM 0004-24, requesting a comprehensive plan amendment from rural residential to resort community on approximately 1.81 acres generally located in sections 21, Township 57 North, Range 1 East, Boise Meridian, Bonner County, Idaho, based upon the following conclusions. The proposal, excuse me, I need a moment. Is in accord with the elements of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Conclusion 2, the proposal was reviewed for compliance with Title 12 Bonner County Revised Code. I apologize, I need to go back. Conclusion 1, proposal is not in accord with the elements of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Conclusion 2, this proposal was reviewed for compliance with Title 12 Bonner County Revised Code and is found to be in compliance.
Yeah, we're just making,
You can, but
no, sorry.
I apologize, it's just with going back now, I'm trying to
It's okay.
reorganize my thoughts. Conclusion 3, the proposal is in accord with the purpose of the resort community comprehensive land use designation. But to clarify, I believe it is in accord with the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan, is not in accord with the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan, is in accord with Title 12, and is in accord with the resort community comprehensive land use designation. So the one thing I believe is not in accord with is the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. This decision is based upon the evidence submitted at the time of the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law as set forth in the staff report or as amended during this hearing, and direct planning staff to draft written findings and conclusions to reflect this motion. Have the chair sign and transmit all to all interested parties. This action does not result in a taking of private property. The actions that could be taken are file a new application with the planning department to meet the standards required by Bonner County Revised Code, or pursue such remedies as may be applicable at Title 67, Chapter 65, Idaho Code.
There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second that for deliberation.
Okay, comment from the board.
Sorry, Brian.
No problem. I'm happy to clarify if I need to. I apologize.
So the motion on the table is to uphold the last board's decision.
To uphold the
deny.
denial, based on, I believe that it is not in accord with the comprehensive plan because of the consideration of all of the property rights and property values in the vicinity. But I do believe it's in accord with Title 12, which has to do with the reconsideration.
Gotcha.
And with the resort community comprehensive plan, the land use designation. But I don't believe it's in accord with the comprehensive plan when it comes to the consideration of the adjacent area. I'm sorry for the
No,
confusion.
you don't have to apologize.
Sorry, this migraine is.
Yeah.
All right. Any further comment from the board?
Nope.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Ford?
No.
Commissioner Mount?
Yes.
All right. It is 5:12 and this meeting is adjourned.